Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the 2025 World Rowing Indoor Championships presented by Concept2. I'm your host, Mike Arsenault. I'll be with you throughout the entirety of the day's coverage. It will be fast and it will be furious. And this is definitely a global flavor to this event. Competing today, those of who have qualified for this final day of the first weekend of competition for the 500-meter races, we have over 40 countries represented from 5 continents. And keeping with that global feel, I'm joining you from Ontario, Canada. And let's bring in the other members of my commentary crew. First up from the UK, Camilla Hadlin-Horrocks. Camilla, welcome. I know this is not your first rodeo, but it's going to be an exciting day of competition.
Very much so, Mike. Great to be here. This, I think, now my fifth World Rowing Indoor Championships that I've had the pleasure of being part of, from all the way back in 2020 when we were live in person in Paris, and it's gone through various stages of development and growth over those last few years. And great to see that we've had over 1,600 athletes entered into this championship over these 2 weekends. And of course, for the first time ever, running competition, not only prior to this for the qualifiers for those open world heats, but also over 4 big days of racing. And great to be with you live today.
And you'll be, of course, providing some expert analysis and commentary, also providing some expert analysis and commentary. Neve Hayes, we had an opportunity to work together last year when I was on site in Prague. So looking forward for you breaking down all of this competition with your rowing bona fides as well. So what are you excited to see from this Fast and Furious day?
Yes, thank you, Mike. So great to be here. It is my second year commentating, and I have competed at these championships before. So back in 2020 in Paris, that Camilla mentioned there, and virtually at home in 2021. So I can empathize with the athletes that are getting ready on their ergs at home and in gyms and different places all around the world right now. So I know the love and the pain that goes into these races. So I'm really excited to see the 500 meters coming up because they're always so exciting. They're over before we know it.
And something we'll get into a little bit further throughout the day's competition is that it's not just one race. So these athletes that will make it to the final will have raced 3 times over 2 days. So I'm sure there's strategy, there's rest and recovery that has to go into competing so much in such a short period of time. So we will touch on that. But you may be thinking, well, this is a global event. We have competitors from all around the world. How do they race each other, and how do we follow along with the action? Here's how it works.
Welcome to the 2025 World Rowing Indoor Championships, presented by Concept2, where the world comes together to race, no matter where you are. From first-timers to world champions, every stroke counts in this electrifying test of power, endurance, and mental grit. The World Rowing Indoor Championships will be staged as a fully virtual event, bringing together nearly 1,500 athletes from all corners of the globe, competing from their homes, gyms, and clubs, all connected in real time and racing against each other on their Concept2 rowing machine. Using Time Team's home race software, the competitors will be all virtually connected. While racing, competitors will know their placing, as their indoor rower will be running in race mode. This will allow them to see their position in a race on their rowing machine's monitor. There are 2 types of races competitors can enter: individual distance races, over 500 meter or 2,000 meter, and the relay races, where teams of 4 will race over 500 meter or 2,000 meter. The format this year is one of a kind. Qualified athletes will compete in continental knockout heats, from which the top 50 athletes will progress to the elimination semifinals. It is then the top 20 athletes that will qualify for the grand finals to determine the 2025 World Rowing Indoor Champions. Following the completion of the grand finals, medals will be awarded to the highest placed 3 finishers on the World Indoor Championships, presented by Concept2, and make history from where I row.
Well, Camilla, I'm curious in your experience, that we saw some footage there, that it looks like an important aspect of this competition is having a support system around you. So you're not just rowing by yourself virtually, it's having maybe other people who are competing in the same race, or just having that support system. So what will that do for these athletes, that they're able to have kind of that support pushing them across the finish line?
It's a huge advantage, I think, to have those people that know your race strategy, know your plan, can keep you accountable for each stroke that you're taking throughout this piece, especially such a short race, 500 meters. Most of these athletes that we'll see today, in fact, all of them will be aiming for under 2 minutes. So it's a quicker than 2-minute race. But we'll see lots of various strategies when it comes to the support team. You know, some people choose to just have one person that knows their race plan, that can talk in their ear, and we'll see other people that are dialing in from their rowing clubs, from their training centres, from their gyms, that will have huge amounts of not only people rowing alongside them that perhaps are in the same race, but also, you know, coaches, supporters. I think it's a huge amount of variance, lots of variable levels of noise, support, and coaching that these athletes will get. And I think, you know, it will be whatever is best suited to the athlete. They'll have set themselves up well in that environment to be able to have the best support possible.
So, Niamh, you've had quite an extensive competitive rowing background. So I'm curious, how would you approach these races? What would your support system look like? What would that set up before we get into the race? What would that look like?
Yeah, so it's interesting because obviously I've raced in Paris where there's hundreds of people in the stadium with you and it can get quite noisy. And I've also raced in 2021 at home virtually when it was during COVID. And so I was by myself then, so it was very different. And I think athletes are very, you know, they have individual tastes when it comes to how many people they want around them. I prefer the quieter, I prefer to support myself sometimes and not have that person shouting at me, whereas other people love the noise and love all the people around them. So I think we're going to see lots of different setups today, but definitely it's, as Camilla said there, it's very individual when it comes to that support.
Now, if we look at last year, we of course had that hybrid competition. Some people were on site in Prague. A lot of people were competing virtually. This year, it's all virtual. And whereas last year we had kind of different age group specific races, now they've all been combined. So Camille, can you just kind of take us through that difference this year with everyone virtually, and we're kind of collapsing all those age categories into one race?
Yeah, of course, Mike. I think that it's a different challenge, especially for some of those athletes that are used to being at the forefront of their field in their age group. So again, we've got people who are already guaranteed at the moment during this weekend's worth of racing to be crowned champion in their event. For instance, I think Jorma Liittonen from Finland in the lightweight men's that we'll see later on, he's already guaranteed to be our 75 to 79 winner here at the World Rowing Indoor Championships. So we might not even see them progress through to the final. So I think it's that switch in mentality that for them, you know, they might not necessarily get the sense that they're up at the front of the field, that they're pushing off people, but they will be racing people that are of a similar speed to them, right? And I think getting that ranking overall against, you know, your category, whether that be open men's and women's, lightweight men's and women's, it will give them a real sense of where they are globally, no matter what age or background they're coming from.
Well, and speaking of that first race, lightweight women coming up very shortly. We have 49 competitors that will be competing in this race, trying to make it to that top 20. Niamh, just what are some names that kind of stand out to you for this first one before we get things going here?
Yeah, absolutely. So we saw some great racing yesterday, and the winning time, the fastest time yesterday was that 1:38.2 from Maryam Marinikalova representing Ukraine. And 20th place, of course, it's going to be that 20th place we're going to be keeping an eye on because only 20 people are going through. There was only 5 seconds separating first and 20th yesterday. But one of the names I'll be watching is Paola Mancini of Italy. She finished 5th yesterday, but compared to the rest of the competitors, she's in the 55 to 59 category. A lot of those women racing around her are in the 23 to 39 category. So it's great to see her right up there in the middle of it.
Through what we're seeing right now and what these athletes will be faced with before we hear that starting bell.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, this is one of my favorite bits, getting to see all of the little camera screens populating. We already had a quick look at where our competitors are tuning in from all around the world, getting themselves set up globally here for this first semi-final of the day in the lightweight women's 500 meters. You can see there on the left-hand side of your screen, that's only a portion of our competitors that we've got here, but we will be taking you through how as things progress. But Niamh, we can see here on the screen one One of the other names I've been looking out for is certainly Pernilla Bockerman of Finland. She's up there in the top right-hand side of our screen. She set the fastest time through the open heats. She was sort of further down the rankings, though, in yesterday's continental qualifiers. I think maybe part of that strategy coming into play, just doing enough to qualify for the next round.
Absolutely. I think we saw that across the board yesterday, where, you know, the World Open heats, they were much faster really in every race compared to yesterday's times. There was an element of maybe saving yourself a little bit for today because, you know, people potentially have 3 races across the weekend, but we're already off in the first semi-final of the day. So we have 49 competitors and only 20 spaces up for grabs in the grand final later on. Always these first few strokes are really important, particularly in these 500 meters. You have to get that flywheel going on the row erg as quick as you can, usually short, snappy strokes to get it going. And you can see them now starting to lengthen out slightly, but we're already 200 meters in here, Camilla.
Yeah, 200 meters in. It's a difficult strategy here for these athletes. It's almost akin to running something between a 400 and an 800 meter on track, right? It's not quite a sprint, but not quite an endurance race. They've still got to be able to pace themselves. And there is our race leader, Margit Varma of Estonia, just one in from the left-hand side of your picture there. You can see those meters tracking down now, just 20 or so strokes left to go. And we'll have to look at where those top 20 lie to qualify for the final.
Yeah, that place 19, 20, 21 keeps changing here at the moment. Great Britain's Laura Allen. We have Damika Szykoza of Poland and Anna Machnicka of USA. They're the ones watching now, hoping to get in to the top 20. Let's see, they're coming into the final 50 meters here now. No real change up the top, but you can see splits a little bit higher than what they were yesterday.
Yeah, it's been getting faster and faster through every round of competition. And once again here, we're going to lower that bar. 1:38.3, the provisional winning time there for Sagi Maleki of the Islamic Republic of Iran, right at the top of your leaderboard, pipping Margit Varma right on the line there. Maryam Mamelakova of Ukraine, who was that fastest through the Continentals yesterday, having to settle for 3rd place through, but good enough to get into that top 20. And looking down at that 20th place, Eve Sankovsky, we saw her on screen a few moments ago, but Neve, wow, what a relief it must be for her to finish in that 20th place.
Absolutely, and she just got in by the skin of her teeth, because 21st place was 0.2 of a second, so 20th place was 1:42.3, 21st was 1:42.5 here. So unfortunately, like, they're the margins in these 500 meter races. There's absolutely nothing that separates them.
Well, speaking of strategy, like we talked about having to race 3 times in 2 days. I don't know how much strategy you can really have, especially if you're kind of on that bubble of the top 20. It's pretty much just pull as hard as you can. If you make it in the top 20, then worry about that recovery afterwards. You really aren't afforded that much. But even for the women that we saw at the top of the leaderboard, Camilla, are they able to kind of game it a little bit, or are the margins just too thin that they really have to push it 95, 100% capacity to ensure they're in the final?
I think they'll have gone in with a strategy, right? They'll have looked at that 20th top time, which in this case was 1:43.4. They'll have picked that out through the Continentals as being the benchmark. They'll have accounted for a little bit of drift as well to make sure that they built in time as things got faster, as the stakes got higher. But I think within that, if they know that they can row within themselves, there is still, like I was saying, a sort of opportunity to pace yourself with a 500 meters. It's not an all-out sprint like you'd get at 100 meters or 250 meters. There's still the opportunity to settle through the middle. Now, we may not see that through in the finals. It'll be an all-out race for the line. But here in these semi-finals, I think these top athletes could be that little bit more strategic.
And here's a look at our top times, the top 20 from that race who will move on to the final. Of course, the lightweight women semi, 138.3, the number 1 spot there. And as we go to the second page of the leaderboard, you can see 138, the top time. As we go to the second half of that leaderboard, I'm pretty sure it was around 142. So 4 seconds separating our winner of the semifinal from number 20, Eve Sankovsky. So we'll see if these athletes are able to rebound, rest up, recuperate. We'll get into what they might be doing to get that rest and recuperation as we move further through the day's competition. But let's pivot now from the lightweight women to the lightweight men. So we have another going to be fast and furious race. Neve, what is there any difference between what we just saw from the women from what we're going to see from the men here?
So the men's had incredible times yesterday. We saw the fastest time through the continental heats, 1:23.3, down to 20th place, which was 1:28.1. So 5 seconds there again, or less than it, separating first to 20th place yesterday. We had a couple of world records as well that were set yesterday, and we can see on our screen there, Kenneth MacDonald in second place currently representing Ireland, set a new world record in the men's 50 to 54 category, 55 category. Incredible time there yesterday, 1:23.5. You know, he's, again, we're mentioned about age, 52 years old, compared to a lot of the competitors here are 19, 20, 21 years old, which is great to see.
Well, can we just spend a quick moment on that, Camilla? Just how amazing that is, that the second place qualifier in his 50s, again, competing against people who could be his sons. It's just absolutely incredible to see the fitness and the talent that is able to stay with these athletes as they move through their more mature years.
Astonishing. And you know, indoor rowing really is a platform leveler. Like, we get people who have come at it from all walks of life, whether you've been a flat water rower, whether you've been a coastal rower, whether you've never touched a rowing boat ever before. You know, you've come to this through fitness racing, which is sort of pathway into this sport and into finding the Concept2 and the rowing machine. We can see there we're in the room with the Islamic Republic of Iran's team, who are about to get going, and here we go, and all eyes on Amareza Abdali, who set that fast qualifying time through the continental knockout heats yesterday, but really tough to choose, Neve, at this stage as to who's gone out fast. 57 strokes a minute there for Jonas Makapelto of Finland, that's managed to snatch him the lead.
Yeah, at this point in the race, like, people have no idea where they're going to finish, so you really just have to go for it right now in those first 10 strokes. After that, we'll start to see that settling again here, and people will kind of gauge where they are. Now, the system that we have at home, like, everyone on their ergs will have that monitor in front of them. They'll have a laptop hooked up, and they'll be able to see where they are coming compared to everyone else. So they know exactly where they are, and they'll know if they have to push it here now. So already halfway through here now. It is Spain's Jose Germen Rendo Ismo who is leading it out here now, up at 45 strokes per minute, down at around 1:25 here. So I'm not sure. Again, it's looking like this is going to be a split. The splits will be a little bit higher again in this race compared to yesterday.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of people trying to sort of ramp up and backload this race, this final 100 meters that they'll have saved their sprint for. This is about 15 strokes to go when you hit 100 meters, and we're counting those down with every second that passes. And a brilliant finish there for Abdali, who we saw through the knockouts yesterday, who goes on to clinch that win. A brilliant support team around him there in Iran. And wow, 1:23.8 to take that. Adam Magoo, who sets the fastest qualifying time prior to this in the World Open heats. He was our 2022 under-23 lightweight men's 500 meter champion, so absolutely one to watch. Finishes in second there, a really confidence boosting time to set him up through into our finals, Mike.
Neve, a question for you. With the lightweight men just competing, you mentioned something during our pre-production meeting that, of course, these athletes have to weigh in before the races yesterday. They also have to weigh in today as well. So how does that play into really just the mental stress that these athletes are under to make sure they're ready, not just for one day of competition, but for a second one?
Yes, this is the thing. You know, if it's a one-day racing, you weigh in once, whereas they're having to do it twice. For the men, that's 75 kilos. You know, if you're well under that weight and, you know, you're not having muscle, eating different food can come into play. Whereas a lot of these are going to be racing at home. And so when you're eating your own food, you're sleeping in your own bed, that can actually make it that little bit easier.
And what are you noticing from this leaderboard, Camilla? It looks like less than a second separated those men who are going on to the final in our top 20 and those who just missed out.
Yeah, fine margins indeed. I mean, in saying that, though, like we've been talking about through the lightweight women's race, that does equate to a reasonable buffer on the actual split times that you're seeing these guys row. But yeah, it really is quite fine margins between you qualifying for a final and you just missing out. And they'll be able to see that as they're rowing. As it said in our explainer video, one of the best things about this race system globally is that you get to track who is in front of you, who's behind you. You get that ability to chase after someone or push off someone, so you'll know exactly where you sit and in what position. But yeah, devastating for some of those that finished, 21st, 22nd, really, really close.
Well, thanks to you both. We're going to take a pause on the competition for just 1 minute because a big aspect of this weekend of competition is just how everything works on the back end and how it is all pulled together for a coherent competition and a broadcast that we can bring you to follow along the action. And right now I want to bring in the chair of the World Rowing Indoor Commission, Philip Lubchik. Philip, great to have you here with us. Now, we had an opportunity to speak in person last year in Prague. I'm just curious, where are you joining us from this year?
Hi, Mike. Hi, everyone. I'm joining you from London. It's great to be with you virtually. We'd always love to be in person, but it's also fascinating that we have a sport that can be done both in person and virtually at home.
And speaking of that sport, that was a big topic of conversation for both of us last year, just this evolution of indoor rowing and where it can go from here. So I'm curious, over the past 12 months, what has really excited you about the progress of this sport and where it might go in the future?
I think when we look at it, it's really exciting that we have this new format where you're racing 3 times potentially in a weekend. We have the open qualifiers, which have allowed everyone to have a go and try and see where they are in a global ranking or standing. And this is the great thing about the last 12 months. We've really been thinking about how can we take the sport forward. And I know people were disappointed that we weren't in person this year. We wanted to be. We always want to be in person, but we also have to look at sometimes it's not possible. We wanted to be in a city. We had a few very interesting candidates, but we just couldn't get it over the line to host the World Championships. But at the end of the day, we have a fantastic virtual World Championships this year, where we've brought over 1,500 athletes together all around the world to have a great racing experience over 2 weekends.
Can you just give us some information on just what the lift is like for your team, World Rowing in general, to bring 1,500 athletes from across the globe together to compete over 2 weekends? Because I just have to focus on making sure I have a microphone and a camera on. I can't imagine what it's like for you and your team. So if you could just dive into that a little bit.
Oh, so it's been huge. I think the team at World Rowing have been working really hard since probably February, March last year, since the Prague World Championships. So since then, we've been looking at how would we do a 2025 World Championships. There were lots of different options on the table. And then from, let's say, June to October, it was preparation for the World Open qualifiers. So getting all the marketing materials, the assets, the infrastructure ready that we needed for these championships. And then opening up qualification began in November. And then now coming to here where you're bringing in broadcast, you're bringing in all the athletes around the world. So you've got to give them information packs. You've got to build all the collateral that someone needs to know and understand how to race. And then also doing test events. So we did a few test events beforehand where we got people to play around with the system and have a go. So it's been great.
Now, in terms of other opportunities for athletes to compete, we have the competition over 2 weekends as we narrow down from the knockout rounds yesterday, semifinals right now. We'll be back with the finals a little bit later on today. What are some other opportunities for athletes to compete? I know we have the virtual sprints coming up rather shortly.
Yeah, so we have the virtual sprints on Concept2's logbook. That will be happening in March. And then we have a virtual series that will be starting later on in the year, which will be a number of challenges that will take place each month over 4 months. That will happen in the second half of the year. And then we'll be looking at potentially some other events in person over the next 12 months to 18 months.
Awesome. Well, it's an exciting time for the indoor rowing sport and the community at large. So, Philip, thank you very much for your time. We'll have a chance to speak with you next weekend as well. As we pivot back to some competition, our next race coming up, the semifinal women. And Neve, let's start with you. So, what is the expectation? Obviously, a little bit faster as we're in. This is kind of the big show, the top 50 women here ready to compete. It's really going to be a hard-fought battle to get into that top 20.
Absolutely, yeah. We have some heavy hitters here now. The winning time from Zara Zafar of Egypt yesterday was 1:29.5, so breaking that 1:30 mark. Down to 20th place yesterday was 1:34.5. So again, not much separating here. The top 20 places. I'm sure we'll see lots of people who weren't in the top 20 getting into it though today, because there's been lots of changes as we're seeing people taking different strategies. But lots of names to watch out for here. We have some medalists from last year and from previous years. We have five-time world rowing indoor champion Doris Meinbeck there of Estonia. She finished 15th yesterday, so let's see if she can come up a few places.
And who do you have your eye on, Camilla, for this one as a competitor, not just to make the top 20, but to be near the top of this leaderboard as we get ready for the semi and then make it on toward the final?
Well, we just saw Rachel Fisher on screen there, actually, of Great Britain. And I feel I've got to give out a shout out to my fellow countrywoman of Great Britain. Rachel Fisher is one. She only started rowing last March and was second in her age category at last year's World Rowing Indoor Championships. And also Sally Brearley, who we're expecting to see. She won the 500 metres back in 2023 and was crowned British Rowing's Indoor Champion in December of last year. So a couple of Brits to watch out for, I think we'll see towards the top of the leaderboard. Patricia Batista of Portugal, another one that we've got our eye on, and Nourdrissi Hassan of Morocco, the 26-year-old, who I think will also feature quite heavily, who was quite fast through the heat. So they're here. We're starting to see all of our athletes populate the camera screens, and wonderful to see such great participation from all over the world. We saw our map earlier on, 172 entries we had coming into this through the open heats, and whittling down now to our final 50, soon to be our final 20.
Well, it's an exciting race ahead, Neve. I'll pass things over to you to give us the play-by-play and analysis of this women's semi-final in the 500.
Yeah, so they're just getting going. If you watch on your screen here, you can see the rowers are still warming up. So this is a key part of the race, those last few moments. They'll be getting the instructions on the monitor in front of them. It will tell them when to stop rowing, when to sit ready. So that's what they'll be watching out for right now. But you can see they're still rowing right now, trying to keep the blood flow into those muscles, which is really important in these last few moments. You can see last few checks there, having a drink of water. It's all about just staying in the zone in this moment, and not trying to get carried away. But yeah, you can see different strategies. Some of them still rowing, some of them have stopped here.
Yeah, just the final few warm-up moments here. Case Karpatski there of Finland deciding not even to be on the machine prior to starting this race, cutting it quite fine here. Patricia Batista, we mentioned her earlier on, the 32-year-old from Portugal, one to watch here, and very fast through those heats. But we saw Spain feature earlier on in the lightweight men's race. A great performance from some Spanish athletes so far this morning, and plenty of interest from Denmark as well for Var Gedortir Hansen, who just does some final adjustments to her machine ahead of this 500 meters race and semi-final. So top 20, we talked about what the 20th fastest time was yesterday. It was a 1:34.5 through those continental knockout heats. But Neve, I'm sure that we'll see that go down today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there was an element of trying to do enough yesterday to get through without having to overdo it, because, they knew they were going to have to race potentially twice more today. So it was finding that there was a fine balance of pushing it, but I don't think we saw the best times at all yesterday. I think we're going to see, particularly in the grand finals, I think there'll be some impressive times. So everyone has been told to stop rowing. They're getting that instruction on their monitor in front of them. So now they're waiting for the word ready and then go. So they'll be all good to go now, and we can see, if you watch the first few strokes here, how quick, how fast, how short they are just to get those flywheels running. So they always go for about between 3 and 10 strokes here, just really fast, and then we'll start to see them slow it down slightly, although they can't slow down too much because it's only about 90 seconds in total here for some of these rowers. So at the moment, lovely start there by Denmark's Var Gerardottir Hansen. Of course, she won a gold medal last year in the 21 to 22 category, so here she is trying to make her way into that top 20 and onto the podium later on.
Yeah, she's up at rate 40, but has dropped down now back into 4th place, despite being the 4th fastest in qualifying, clinging on to try and stay in 4th, because as she moves down the leaderboard, it's a tussle at the top between 3 athletes here. Estonia's Terje Leola, Zara Safar, who we've talked about already with that fast time yesterday and looking to wrestle that back off Estonia, and then Nurdrisi Hassani, who sits in 3rd place at the moment, but is really in danger here of Rachel Fisher, who climbs up the leaderboard. We did say to watch out for her, the 100-metre British record holder, now going for 500 metres. She's up at 45 strokes a minute at a 1:32 pace.
Yeah, things are changing very much here as they come into their final few strokes. Most of them up in those low 40 stroke right here, doing all they can to get into that top 20, and those 19, 20 and 21st places keep changing there now at the moment between Spain, Ukraine and Finland. Let's see as the results start to come in. But Zara Zafar of Egypt there, 1:29.2, so beating her time yesterday. She was 1:29.5, so beating it there. But let's have a look down for 19. It looks like it was a joint 19th place. Australia's Nardia Gerlamer and Ukraine's Katerina Mishkavko. That means that maybe, I think, Rachel McIlworth of Great Britain may have missed out on a qualifying spot there.
Yeah, just such fine margins. And like we saw in the previous race, actually, where we had a joint finisher in 20th position, the same has happened here, joint 19th to see themselves through to that grand final. Of course, these provisional results, and we'll bring you the confirmed results later on.
Just seeing how close these races are, just mentally, Niamh, how do these athletes deal with missing out on the final by 0.2 of a second? Like, how, I mean, obviously they're experienced rowers and they've dealt with this for their entire careers, but how do you kind of quickly bounce back from something like that, knowing that it's really literally the blink of an eye that separates you from making it to the final or being done for the weekend?
Yeah, in one way it's great because you know you're there with the, with the fastest rowers. You know that there's not much in it. And when it comes to that, like they know the training that needs to go into it, but it's the fine margins. It's how quick you can get that first stroke pulled, when you see the goal on your screen, how fast you can get going. And it's all those fine little margins really are, but these rowers, they know they're there or thereabouts.
Well, the racing has been fantastic thus far. We'll have more on the other side of this ad break, so we'll be back in 90 seconds.
Indoor rowing is more than just numbers. It's making friends while working out. It's having fun and getting strong, stroke by stroke. The EXA app has it all. Share your passion with a worldwide community. Explore mesmerizing locations. And push your limits with training plans. Indoor rowing has never been easier. The world is your workout. Start rowing it.
Well, Camilla, I might need to get that myself because my face doesn't, I don't smile like that after I'm done a rowing session. So maybe that is the key. If you can have the scenery behind you, it makes it a little less painful.
Yeah, and get to row in some places without actually having to step on the plane or pack a bag full of kit. Definitely something that I'm keen to try, that's for sure. But look, we can see there that's the previous event. Maybe these guys will be trying that at home during their training, but confirmed there, Sarah Zafar, who won out that semi-final in a 1:29.2, so fast, and we're just getting faster and faster, Mike, here, and I'm sure that's what we'll expect from this next race too with the men.
That's right. Semifinal men, we have, again, a lot of very strong gentlemen looking to make to the top 20 to make it through to the final later on today. And you'll notice that we've been talking about the top 50. This one's a little bit different. We have 52 men because, again, the margins are so thin. We had some ties breaking into that top 50. So we have 52 competitors, Neve, who are ready to tackle this race and try and crack that top 20.
Yeah, they're the margins. The fastest time yesterday in this was 1:14.6, set by Hans Lorwald there of Germany. He was 13th going into after the World Open heats, finished first yesterday, fastest, and then 20th place yesterday was 1:17.8. There was only 0.9 seconds separating second and 11th place. So, nobody can hold back here. There's no holding back in this race now if you want to make into the top 20.
Well, some more disco lights here in the Finland camp for Jonas Kuvalainen in this men's 500 meters. There's certainly some row faster discotheque lights, but we're underway. Well, I say that we're underway. We've had our first false start whilst we're in the live phase of competition here on the broadcast. We saw quite a number of these last year, Neve, actually, didn't we? And in years prior. It's very easy to do, especially if you're joining your competitors virtually.
Absolutely, yeah, it is. And some people love getting false starts, as in not the person who causes it, but they love having them because they get that adrenaline burst out of the way, and then they're a little bit more settled the second time that they go into it. Other people hate it because it totally throws off their kind of game plan. So we'll see now how it affects people as we go into it. But basically what happens now with a false start, we just have to allow all the ergs to kind of reset and the flight wheels to stop so that everyone is starting from a fresh start, basically. So you can see some people are continuing to row again, some people getting off the ergs there. Lots of returning members from last year, a few podium winners as well. You did mention there Jonas Kurlavainen of Finland there. He was first last year in the 23 to 39 category, second in the 2,000 meter relay, which we'll be seeing next week again. Of course, we have the 5,000 meter relays later on to look forward to. And we have Spiridon Kalintis representing Greece. He is currently sitting in 7th position, but he set a world record last year in the 19 to 29 category, 1:10.3 in the 500 meters. Let's see what he can do today. Yesterday he rode 1:16.5, so maybe just off the pace of that world record time a little bit, but he might surprise us today.
Yeah, Leven, like we've seen with all of these semi-finals, I think people gradually building up through that funnel to try and produce their best time in the final later on today. It's all about being efficient and being able to scrape through and expend the least amount of energy possible whilst also getting those qualifying times. And so that's exactly what these athletes will be doing, especially some of those who are towards the top end of the qualifying times. They'll be seeking to do just enough, whilst those who perhaps are further down in those sort of 19 through 26, they'll be wanting to push themselves as hard as possible just to get their spot through to the final and qualify. So lots of different tactics will be at play here. There's the confirmed false start, ergo number 32. So joining us from Poland, Blażej Walowski, who unfortunately took that first stroke a few milliseconds too early, but we're about to get started again. And well, I think that was in fact the second false start that we've had from Walowski of Poland. But like you said, Neve, sometimes actually this can bring the nerves down, although with that comes down the adrenaline as well sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like one is okay, but two false starts can really throw off some people. So yeah, I think it suits some people to get one out of the way. But mentally, if you're prepared that you're starting a race at a certain time, you have your race strategy, it can really throw people off a little bit. But we're seeing Lee Davies there on screen. He looks quite comfortable, but they're getting that sign on their monitors now again to stop rowing. So hopefully third time lucky here now. I am loving the disco lights that we are seeing in Finland here. They're really getting into the spirit, and I'm wondering actually, is that going to be the setting for all of Finland's races throughout the day? They have some relays coming up as well. Surprising not to see Joel Nakarinen of Finland in this. He had qualified but didn't start yesterday. So he's one who I would have said would have been definitely in the top 20. So but we will see him later on in the relay.
Yeah, like you say, Niamh, speaking of Finland, Joel Nakarinen was due to start, but it's just Kyväläinen here flying the flag for Finland on this occasion. He's without Nakarinen, who in fact set a world record just earlier on this week. But without him, the door has opened here and we're off underway smoothly this time around. Third time lucky, as you say, here in the semi-final of the men's 500 metres. That top 20 is what we're looking for here, and no surprises that out of the blocks up at 50.
Incredible. Let's see if he can try and match his world record from last year, 110.3. Not sure if that will work out today, but if we see him in the final later, that might happen. Lee Davies there of Great Britain sitting in second place, just 2 meters behind him here now. They're already gone through halfway. Lucas Maruzzi of France in that third position. We're seeing the leaders from yesterday, Matt Snare, who finished second. He's down in sixth position right now. Final 100 meters. Lee Davies still up at 49.50. He's after moving into the lead here now.
Yeah, Lee Davies really consistent here, just starting to push past Kalensis, who feels he's probably done enough, I feel, to get into that top 20. This is all mind games now, and being able to save yourself for a final performance later on. 1:15.3, that will be the unofficial leading time here for the Brit Davis. It will then be Loic Schelbetter's second place for Switzerland here. Grasil of Slovakia, another contender that we see frequently at the World Rowing Indoor Championships. Great to see him up there. And as we filter off down the results, it looks like a 1:17, Mike, as our 20th place.
I'm a bit of at a loss for words, which is probably not appropriate for the host of this broadcast competition. But we have 2 seconds separated first from 20th. So you mentioned Kalensis, Camille, taking his foot off the gas. He finished in 17th there. But like it staggers the mind. It's just how close and how strong and how fast these competitors are, that it's literally 2 seconds difference between winning that heat and going home, and your day is done. It's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
it is absolutely, like 20th place there, 1:17.2. 21st, who just missed out, 1:17.3 there. Yukusim Tumusk of Estonia just missing out. Like, it's incredible there. Even up to 28th place, they're within 1 second of missing out. So every single stroke counts in these 500 meters. You just cannot you can't let up at all throughout the minute and 20 seconds that you're racing.
Just incredible stuff. So we're, of course, those athletes will rest up and prepare themselves for the final. So we'll pause on the action for just a couple of minutes. Right now, I'd actually like to bring in Shane Farmer. We had the opportunity, Shane, to work together at the 2023 World Rowing Indoor Championships in Toronto. So just would love to just give your thoughts on that race, what you saw from those, the top 50 men were amazing, but the top 20 moved on to the final. What's your first thought after seeing a race like that?
The first thought when you look at something like that, Mike, is just how blistering fast they are moving. When we're saying that the top 20 are under 1:17 and that is the threshold to be able to make it, it is absolutely stunning. And for those who don't recognize, they may not be familiar with sitting down on top of the erg, the hairs that we are splitting to get from 1:17 down to 1:15 in first. As you said, I mean, watching somebody take their foot off the pedal for just a moment and seeing them go from second to 17th is just mind-blowing. All of these humans are moving so fast at this point, and yet we're still not in the grand final yet. And so these are athletes that are having to make that cut to move forward, having to give it all, knowing that there's still another race yet to come.
Now, you have a pretty extensive rowing background, also an extensive fitness background as well, and you've kind of been a big a big guidepost perhaps for a lot of athletes who may be unfamiliar with indoor rowing, and you've gotten them into it and kind of coached them to some very impressive performances. So just what have you seen in the indoor rowing community, just the evolution over the past decade?
It's been fun to watch as you've seen more people gravitate to indoor rowing and understand that it can be a competitive sport, that if you are good on this machine, you can be successful in some level of competition. You don't have to go to on-water rowing. And so especially when we look at 500-meter races like this, we've seen a huge influx of athletes that may have come from other power sports that are able to come into indoor rowing and find success in a shorter event like this, where you're not quite balancing the same aerobic needs as you do with a 2,000-meter race, which is much bigger, much longer, takes a lot more sustain of your fitness in order to be able to make it through. You need both power, but you also need endurance. Whereas with a 500-meter piece, you really can just put your foot down on the pedal and just go for it. And so it's been fun to watch as we see some athletes from different sports come into indoor rowing, find some enjoyment, some love, some competition, and to be able to chase after the scores that we're seeing, which again, we're still not in the final. This is just to get there, and we're still seeing 115s at this level.
So do you think any of the top 20 were they holding anything back, or are those margins just too thin that they have to go kind of full bore and just hopefully they have enough left in the tank later today?
Listen, the top players here are going to be holding something back. They're not going to give it everything they've got here. There's no way you can do that back to back to back to get into the space that you need. So if you're smart, you're looking at the screen and again, we're splitting hairs here. So you are keeping on the throttle as much as humanly possible while knowing that you're not surviving on hopes and dreams and rainbows and butterflies for the final 150 meters. So yes, they are most likely holding something back. I would expect that when you get to the finals, you're going to see some off the charts performances.
Well, last question for you. I'm not sure how fast your 500-meter time is now, if you would have made it into the top 20, but if you did, what would your rest and recovery strategy look like before the final coming up?
So I would be making sure that I am getting plenty of hydration. Granted, we're not seeing this massive sweat loss that happens in 500 meters, but you never want to go into a race like that with any kind of deficit. So I'm going to make sure that I have plenty of carbohydrates in my system, that I'm getting off my legs as much as possible. But also, once I get off my legs, I've gotten some rest underneath me. I need to make sure that I'm still moving so that my body doesn't fall into a slump. I need to stay up a little bit elevated. So there's this real balance of rest versus staying alert and staying ready to go that you have to balance in order to make it into a finals. Because if you totally take off, kick your legs up, get too parasympathetic, too relaxed, then you get into that final and you're just not quite there with the edge that you need. And as we've seen with how small that difference can be between first and 20th, you need everything going for you. So a little rest, a little food, a little hydration, you should be good to go.
Awesome. Hopefully some of those top 20 were listening to this or have the opportunity to play that back. Shane, thank you very much for your time. We'll speak with you next weekend as well. Camilla, Niamh, Fast and Furious. I said that off the top. I think that came to fruition definitely there. And now it is, again, that rest and recovery. So just kind of initial predictions, Camilla, do you think the athletes that we saw at the top of the semifinal, will they have enough in the tank to be in that position at the end of the final?
Well, look, I think, let's take that last semi-final that we just saw, the men's 500 meters. The world record in that 500 meter event was only set last year. Phil Clapp, who isn't competing this weekend, a great opportunity for someone to go and challenge that. Now, it is a really lofty time, given that we were just talking about the likes of 115, 117. It's a 109.8. So whether we'll see a performance like that this weekend after back-to-back racing, that would have been done completely fresh preparation for one performance, one race. I'm not sure, but we know that we have athletes that are capable of getting down and in and around that. I think certainly, Kalentzis of Greece, like we just saw, can produce a 110. And so, I'd love to be able to see us to get further down towards those numbers in the grand final.
In terms of strategy, Neve, for the final, looked like a lot of those races, it was pretty much just pull as hard as you can and then just hang on for dear life. There wasn't a lot of, didn't look like there was a lot of gamesmanship through that race. Is that what we can expect from the final as well? Just pull as hard as you can and just hang on for dear life throughout the entirety of the 500?
Absolutely. You kind of have no choice when it comes to the grand finals. You just have to give it everything that you have left. You know, these athletes, they've known for quite a while that this is the race format. So they would have known that they may potentially have 3 races across this weekend. And if they were smart, they would have prepared for that. So, you know, they would have spent many days doing that big race on the Saturday or, you know, whatever day of the week, and then doing 2 races on the next day, and played around with that rest and hydration and nutrition, as Shane spoke about there. You know, if you can go into it as if each race is its own final, but I think if those athletes that will be set apart will be the ones who will have practiced this strategy over and over again.
Well, thanks to you both. We have a short break right now as these athletes get in that rest and the recuperation, so they're ready to go in the final. We'll be back shortly with coverage of every single final of the 500 meter. It's going to be an exciting time, so we'll see you back here very shortly. Hi, everyone. The finals have been set, and we are ready to award some hardware. Welcome to the 2025 World Rowing Indoor Championships presented by Concept2. So we're ready for race 3 for many of these athletes for this weekend. The qualification process has been completed, and now we are ready to award those World Championship medals. We have 7 races over the next couple of hours to bring you the action for 500 meters. Will be fast and it will be furious. And of course, there's a global flavor to this event as well. Over 40 countries started the day's competition from 5 continents, and it has been an exciting day thus far, and that excitement promises to continue to build as we move throughout the rest of the day. I say day, it's afternoon for me, it's nighttime for many, it's morning for some as well. We'll get into how that plays into the strategy and the preparation for some of these athletes with our expert members of our commentary team. First up, Camilla Hadlin-Harks, ready to provide her analysis and commentary. We had a great semifinal session, Camilla. Now these athletes have had a chance to rest, and that was a key component that World Rowing wanted to institute for this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. When the first provisional schedule was set, when we looked at holding these races over a 2-day period with that kind of progression system implemented from the open world heats through to the continental races that took place yesterday and then the semi-finals and finals today, one of the bits of feedback from the athletes and from the commission was that perhaps we needed to build in this bit of rest time to allow for those fantastic performances in the final, to make sure that all of the athletes were fully recuperated. So that length of time has expanded between them finishing the semi-finals and them taking part in the finals. The first few races we've got on the schedule are athletes that haven't had a semi-final, so some of the para rowing finals first to come. But yeah, definitely something that was taken into consideration, and I'm sure the athletes are pleased about it.
And Neve Hayes is the third member of our commentary team. She'll be delivering play-by-play with Camilla as well. Neve, great to have you here. And we heard that word preparation. So for when would these athletes start their preparations for these 3 races potentially over the 2 days?
Yeah, so preparation really starts months ago when, entries opened and people set their sights on racing over this weekend or next weekend. A lot of training goes into this. You can't just really show up on the weekend. They had to set a really good world time for the World Open heats, first of all, to make sure that they got into the top 150 before progressing into yesterday's continental eliminators. So, there would have been a lot of training went into it. And then the preparation across the weekend, a lot of these rowers, as we said, the power rowers that are coming up now, they're going to be going into a straight final, but a lot of them actually race yesterday in like a preliminary race just to get used to the system and things like that. So they would have had preparation yesterday as well, and now they're coming into today with a straight final, and they have a good idea as to where they stand on that leaderboard.
Well, speaking of that system, there's a lot of moving parts to have athletes competing from all over the world in one race at the same time. To give you an idea of how it all works, take a look.
Welcome to the 2025 World Rowing Indoor Championships presented by Concept2, where the world comes together to race, no matter where you are. From first-timers to world champions, every stroke counts in this electrifying test of power, endurance, and mental grit. The World Rowing Indoor Championships will be staged as a fully virtual event, bringing together nearly 1,500 athletes from all corners of the globe, competing from their homes, gyms, and clubs, all connected in real time and racing against each other on their Concept2 rowing machine. Using Time Team's home race software, the competitors will be all virtually connected. While racing, competitors will know their placing, as their indoor rower will be running in race mode. This will allow them to see their position in a race on their rowing machine's monitor. There are 2 types of races competitors can enter: individual distance races, over 500 meter or 2,000 meter, and the relay races, where teams of 4 will race over 500 meter or 2,000 meter. The format this year is one of a kind. Qualified athletes will compete in continental knockout heats, from which the top 50 athletes will progress to the elimination semifinals. It is then the top 20 athletes that will qualify for the grand finals to determine the 2025 World Rowing Indoor Champions. Following the completion of the grand finals, medals will be awarded to the highest placed 3 finishers in every age category. Are you ready to take on the world? Join us for the 2025 World Rowing Indoor Championships presented by Concept2, and make history from wherever you row.
Well, Neve, this is really the best of the best. And we saw in that clip that athletes are going to know exactly where they are in their race. But I'm curious, in a race as short and as fast and furious as the 500 meters, are they really paying attention to where they are, or is it purely their own time? Because all these athletes know exactly what they're capable of at 100% capacity. So how much are they actually paying attention to where they are, or is it really just the numbers internally that they're looking for?
Definitely the internal numbers are very important. You have to, when we get to this stage of the competition, giving it 100%. But as we saw in the semi-finals just a little while ago, people went from second to 17th within a split second, basically, so they do have to be keeping an eye on where they're coming in that ranking. Particularly earlier rounds, they needed to make it into the top 20, and their monitor is showing them where they sit in that, and they really need to be keeping an eye on that, particularly now as we come up towards podium places, because it's those split seconds are making the difference here, particularly in these 500-meter races.
Now, our first two races of this session are the para men and para women. So Camilla, can you just give us a little more information on the different categories that make up the para competition?
Yeah, of course. Well, this weekend we're going to see 5 different classifications, as it were, within the para rowing categories at the World Rowing Indoor Championships, 3 of which are Paralympic sport categories. So that is the PR1, PR2 and PR3 category. So if you see that, PR1, well, that has the most limitation when it comes to functionality in relation to rowing. So we'll often see athletes on fixed seats who have impairment likely of their trunk. So they're unable to use that swinging trunk to be able to apply pressure through the rowing stroke. And then as we go up through the categories PR2 and PR3, that sort of functionality in relation to rowing gets greater. And so PR3, you'll often find that this is athletes that have function of their legs, trunk and arms. So again, it's more about how their range of movement and their functionality applies to rowing. We then have 2 categories that we don't see so often on the international stage. They're not Paralympic classifications. So we have the PR3II event. This is the intellectually impaired category for those that perhaps have mental disabilities. And then we also have the open category. So that is essentially a racing opportunity for those who haven't been classified to give racing a go within the parasport classifications. So we'll see those on the screen represented by the purple boats here in this category.
And I had the opportunity on site in Prague last year to watch the para races, and just the performances put forth by these athletes, absolutely incredible. Very similar to the performances we're going to see from all of the athletes competing in the finals today. So Neve, kind of what is your focus as the analysis will develop throughout the race that we're about to see here? What are the kind of things that you're looking for from these para athletes?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very similar to what we saw earlier, in that those first 3 to 10 strokes really make a difference to get that erg going as quick as they can. So a lot of these rowers will be sitting up tall and pulling nice short snappy strokes to get that rower moving, to get that split down. So we'll probably see some high stroke rates at the start before they start to level it out a little bit and then kind of crank it up towards the end again. But we're seeing on our screen now that stop rowing. So each of their monitors is going to be showing them that. So they really have to stop rowing completely. They have to wait until the flywheels come to a complete stop, and then the race is able to get going. So you can see them all pretty much sitting ready. We see a few with the handles still down here now. They'll shortly get that command to say ready and then to go. So some of them sitting completely at ease still here, Camilla.
Yeah, just getting relaxed, getting ready to go here. Now, one of the things that's different about the race that we see on screen that we should probably point out is the different color categories, the different color classifications. That identifies, as I was just talking about, the different sports classifications. So the yellow boats represent our PR1 athletes, the red boat our PR2 athletes, the green boats our PR3 athletes, and then finally those purple boats, those open athletes that are giving racing a chance. And here we go, we're underway with this 500 meters now. I think we're in for a great race here. Frank Oberdorf at the top of your screen, the Frenchman, set the fastest PR1 top time, and look, he's out of the blocks and leading by quite some way in his classification already, Neve.
Yeah, massive start here, up at 43 strokes per minute. Just behind him here, Ala Ibrahim of Egypt, up at 54 strokes per minute here. So really quick start there by the men's PR1, those yellow boats. In the men's PR3, then at the moment it is Milan Lakovic, followed in by Marco Frank. Marco, Paralympian from Paris last year himself, and Milan Lakovic there of Slovakia, fighting it out here for those first positions. We do have returning athletes from last year's podium, first, second and third in the PR3. Milan, Mihal and Hugo there, and Florian as well competed last year.
Yeah, but they're going to have it tough here, Niamh, because there's some new contenders who want to get themselves into the mix. Here are our leaders in the PR3. Lakovic, like you've talked about there, hot on his heels. Marco Frank, who set the fastest time through the heats, that 1:24.1, but looking in danger here, Lakovic. Frank, the Italian, chasing him down for that PR3 title to the line.
Yes, and I think he just about got in there. These are, of course, unofficial results right now, but looks like Marco Frank just got in there ahead of Milan Lakovic of Slovakia in the men's PR3. Coming in the men's open para, then Abdullah Al-Hay, 1:22, followed in very closely there by everyone in that category. Mubarak Juma Aliassi of UAE, 1:33.3 in the men's PR1. Frank Oberturf of France, 1:35.6.
Yeah, what a great finish there all around, all within quite close contention, and great to see, you know, those perhaps trying out racing for the first time in the para classifications. Athletes from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Al-Hay, as you spoke about, Niamh, 1:22.0. That's a time that would have put him up there in a lot of our open categories. So brilliant to see there from the Saudi Arabian. But then, you know, some really close finishes. The PR3 one, particularly my favourite there, went all the way down to the line between Frank and Lakovic. But here are those unofficial results, Mike.
Yeah, really tremendous performances there. And really, just quickly, we're really at the tip of the spear with these athletes' performances. So from like a year to year, like how much improvement could really be achieved by these athletes? Are we thinking a couple of seconds per year? Is it fractions of a second? Like what's a level of improvement for athletes really in the top percentile in their sport?
I think with this, Mike, the level of improvement, it depends on the starting point, right? We have athletes that are picking it up right now. They could be making, you know, tens of seconds of improvements even. I know 500 meters, probably less, you know, less scope to be improving by that much. But yeah, you know, even in the realms of, you know, 5 to 10 seconds worth of improvement up to their peak performance is really possible for those who are just starting out on their indoor rowing journey. Probably less so here in this PR3 final. Like we say, some of these times are right up there with what would have qualified them for the open event. So right at the very top, you know, points of seconds are what people are seeking year on year. But for those just on the start of their journey, still plenty of time for them to get up towards those heights.
I'll be curious to track that 1:22 that Marco Frank put on there and see where he would rank as we move a little bit further through our finals, through the rest of the competition. And so you may be wondering, well, how do we congregate all of these athletes together and make sure things are fair and everyone's has the same opportunity to compete? We'll take a look at this feature on race control.
2025 World Rowing Indoor Championships, presented by Concept2, is fully virtual this year. But do you know how nearly 1,500 athletes from all corners of the globe are all connected in real time? Behind the scenes, Time Team from the Netherlands provides the software and infrastructure to manage this fully virtual indoor rowing competition. Their system ensures seamless competition management, collecting all race data from participants around the world and bringing it together in real time. Each participant receives a unique participant login code, which they use to connect their ergometer to their computer. By logging in with this code, they are connected to the race server alongside all other competitors, no matter where they are in the world. Because virtual participants may have varying internet connections, race control needs to ensure that the data signal they receive is stable for all competitors before clearing umpires to the race to start. Poor internet connections and signals may delay the start, or may even cause race umpires to remove that participant from the race in order to ensure the integrity of the result. The race data is then collected in real time, And the boat tracker allows the competitors and the audience to follow the progress of the race. In addition to race data, Time Team also integrates live video feeds from all competitors across the globe, allowing umpires to verify each athlete's participation and ensure fair play. For results and rankings, athletes can visit the official website where they will find detailed race data, including stroke-by-stroke analysis, stroke rate, and pace.
Well, Camilla, we were talking about the opportunity for improvement. So there you go. Just have to log into Time Team and they'll break down all of your data for you. And that's how you can try and make those, those small steps to just get an improved performance from perhaps taking you from the semifinal, unsuccessful this year. Well, maybe you can get into the top 20 for next year.
Yeah, it's brilliant to go back to all of those racing graphs after the races, and you can go back and look at all of those on the World Rowing website if you're interested in the data, if you're interested in the racing profiles. It's something that I really enjoy doing. Just having a look at what stroke rates people are doing, what racing splits people are performing, and yeah, like you say, Mike, gives you a great opportunity to analyze for improvement.
Well, let's take a look at the start list for our next race, which is the final for the para women. And from what you saw in the men's race, Niamh, is there, I guess, a similar expectation for what we're going to expect from the women's competition?
Yes, absolutely. So again, these rowers they're into a straight final here just due to the entry numbers, but they did race yesterday. So we have a kind of a guide or a sense as to where they are coming or where they will finish. But of course, no doubt they have done a lot over the last 24 hours to recover and probably are aiming to get a faster time now today. So yeah, we're seeing two categories here now in the women's. So we have the PR1, they're going to be those yellow boats on screen when it comes up shortly. And then we have that open para category. Again, we have two competitors there. So it's just a racing opportunity for them. There's no medals to be given out. But just to note for the PR1, there is 3 competitors. And so due to rules of racing, there'll just be a gold and silver medal given out for that category.
Well, thank you for that additional context, Niamh. Camilla, I'll pass things over to you for the play-by-play.
Thank you so much, Mike. And we've already got the sign to stop rowing. And that means that these athletes will be getting those handles nice and still, getting themselves into the starting position. Attention is the word that they will look to sit up, get ready and get themselves underway with the first few strokes here. And you can see down there, Ava Moll on your screen, bottom left-hand side of your picture, was the fastest PR1 qualifying time, a time of 1:40.3 she did in yesterday's heat. And I'm sure we'll be gunning after a faster time today in the finals. But she's out of the blocks. She's well clear of the rest of her competitors. But down below in the open para categories, well, it's a right tussle here between Bewalda of New Zealand and Kia Flensborg of Denmark, Niamh.
Yeah, great start here by everyone. And looking at the stroke rates there, Sylvia and David of France there up at 60 strokes per minute here now. Ava Moll, as you mentioned there, up at 47, 48 strokes per minute. Massive lead here now, already 60 meters of a lead here in the PR1. We saw Ava Moll she came onto the international scene back in 2023 and almost qualified for Paris for the Paralympic Games last year. So she is definitely one to watch on the rowing scene, both on the indoor rower and on the water. And that's the great thing about this sport. It translates over. We have, elite and amateur rowers, but we also have people who've never rowed before and are, just fitness enthusiasts and part of fitness communities worldwide.
Yeah, no, great to see Moll back here again for another Paralympiad. Just fell just shy of competing in Paris, like you say, Niamh, coming second at the final Olympic and Paralympic qualification regatta last year in Switzerland, in Lucerne. But she's into the final 100 meters now. That energy just dwindling. You can see her split times getting slower and slower here. 1:57 when it was 1:40 in the opening heat. But she's still going to finish in a time of 1:48.9, well clear of the rest of the field to snatch that gold in the women's PR1 category. And what a fantastic job there. In the open para categories, well, very close, just a second separating athlete from Denmark, Bertha Kia Flensborg, and Alonka Bovolda of New Zealand. A really great race there for them, and celebrations all round in Camp Denmark there, as you can see on screen. And I'm sure very proud of that racing opportunity that they've been given on the world stage.
Absolutely. How incredible is it that we get an insight into these people, you know, where they're rowing, who they're with, and we're seeing those emotional scenes as they finish up and those hugs that they're getting from the support team. It's lovely to see that insight. We don't always see that when we're in person on a stadium floor. It's just the competitors there by themselves, but to see the support here is great. We have the final of the PR1 women's category now. Sylviane David of France now coming in to take her last 40 meters. She's up at 52 strokes per minute here. Very quick finish here from her.
Yeah, really just tremendous performances from all the women in that category. A great start to our finals. As mentioned, we have 7 that will be competing, or 7 finals that will be raced this afternoon. So that's 2 down, 5 to go. We'll take a short break in the competition right now to get some more kind of analysis of what we have expected to come over the next hour or so. And joining me to do that is former Olympic champion and member of the World Rowing Indoor Commission, Eric Murray. Now, Eric, welcome. We had the opportunity to speak in person in Prague last year. Now we're virtual, and just doing the quick back of the envelope math, I believe it's just after almost 7 a.m. for you. Is that correct in New Zealand?
Yep, early morning here, Mike.
All right. So I didn't interrupt your breakfast.
No, not yet. I'll be there later, and then I'll jump on the rowing machine for a quick training session.
Well, I'd love to hear that. Well, speaking of the training sessions, love to get your feedback on your training sessions in your career, because we're really seeing, since the indoor rowing competitions have really grown and exploded over the past decade or so, how much 500-meter training sessions did you do back during your Olympic days? Was that even a focus for you, or was it purely longer distances?
No, we mainly did longer distance sort of training, and everything was focused around that 2,000 meters. But in the training, you have to mix a lot of things up for your physiology. And so whether or not that's short pieces or, you know, I take it just about everyone in the world has a 500-meter time. And we were no different, because the idea was that if you knew how fast you could sprint, was always an interesting one. Then, you know, that type of thing, you had to be able to do both, because at the end of the day, when you're a flat water rower, you have to be able to have the endurance, but at the same time, you also have to be able to have that sprinting ability as well.
And what do you think of the participation of Olympic caliber on water rowers that have really taken to indoor rowing competitions and have competed in the World Rowing Indoor Championships that we've had? This is the 8th iteration this year. So what does that mean to the indoor rowing sport, that you're seeing buy-in from top level Olympic rowing athletes?
Yeah, we've seen great buy-in, and I think that's a perfect example of the fact that we once saw rowing as only one sport and one thing that people did, whereas now we have the coastal, we have the beach sprints, we have the indoor, and so our disciplines are actually growing dramatically. And not only that, I think that the interconnectivity that we've been able to create, through Concept2 and through Time Team, to be able to get everybody online and be able to compete, has really made it so that we can get this to be a global sport, and we can compete like we are now. And I think that's what really people look at and say, well, now it's an easier thing to do. There's less barriers. I want to compete. You know, we all love competing, whether it's just for the competition for ourselves or whether it is the competition to try and be the best. I think that's the great part about what we can do on the indoor row machines.
And speaking of those opportunities for competition, people may be watching right now, either they're unsuccessful making it to this stage of the competition, or maybe we're on the fence of competing, but they have an opportunity coming up in less than a month with the virtual indoor sprints. What is that event all about, and how can people get involved?
Oh, look, we want to, with the commission, and what we've been trying to do is we've really looked at the way that people want to be part of this indoor rowing community. And so to be able to have a virtual series, I think that what we're able to do is get people to be involved, look at different sort of events as well, not just singular time sprints or singular distance sprints, create a whole different variety of challenges that will then allow people to be like, look, every month I've got something to work towards. And at the end of the day, we need something to work towards. Like when is this going to happen? How are we going to do it? So to be able to do these virtual series and get the virtual sprints going, anyone can get on with their Concept2 and get into their logbooks and be able to create an account. And then they're away laughing, and then you can have a go at the challenges multiple times, see how fast you can go. And then, it leads you from 1 month to another. And then all of a sudden you might be targeting this event next year. And so that's really the great way that we're able to use this virtual world and this interconnectivity.
Well, I'm going to ask you to put on your prognostication hat for me, because last year we were standing side by side when Ward Lemelin just fell short of his goal of breaking the indoor 2,000-meter record. Will we see the 500-meter record fall in your estimation coming up here shortly?
I hope so. I hope so, because records are made to be broken, and I guess that's one of the situations is that we love to see people going fast, and we love to see people doing some extraordinary things. And so, I know that it's that time is just incredible, and I even look at it myself and think it's just wild. Like, but of course, if someone is fully targeted, they've done all their work to get to this point, then yes, it can go. But all the stars do have to align and everything has to be ready. And I'm probably maybe not during, like heats and semis and, doing multiple races. I'm not sure whether or not, because pretty sure when you do it as a one-off, you'd really have all the energy and be able to target it. So I hope so. Let's say that. I hope so, and let's wait and see.
All right. Well, sounds good. Thank you very much, Eric, for your time today. I know we'll have an opportunity to speak next weekend as well. So enjoy the competition, enjoy the breakfast, and enjoy the training session that you have coming very soon. We'll be right back after this short ad break. We'll see you in 90 seconds.
This is not an ad. It's a warning. I know a place that will break you into 1,000 pieces, that will enter through those cracks and will stay and live in you. Run. Run. No, better stay in Manhattan. Get an apartment in Berlin. Stay away from them. Stay away from Lorca, Paco, and Picasso. Don't ask about Lola. Don't listen to the poets who have been here. Ay, Caballo Grande. Ay, Dolor de Nieve. Ay. But in spite of everything, it occurs to you to visit Andalusia. Don't say I didn't warn you. Be careful of the Andalusian crush.
Okay, so we've seen individual competition thus far on this final day of competition for the 2025 World Rowing Indoor Championships, final of the 500-meter, should I say. Of course, we'll have the 2,000-meter competition coming up next weekend. But right now, it's all about teamwork, cohesion, chemistry, and the team relays.
The relays are a single distance row completed by a team of 4 men, 4 women, or a mixed team of 2 men and 2 women. Using one machine per team, athletes will row one at a time, switching however and whenever they wish. But each teammate must row at least once, any distance. For the 2025 World Rowing Indoor Championships, presented by Concept2, teams will be competing in the sprint relays over a distance of 2,000 meters. In endurance relays over a distance of 5,000 meters. Teams participating in the team relays will only be successful if they can handle smooth and fast transitions after a short sprint on the erg.
Well, from the previous 2 years of competition where I was on site in person for the World Rowing Indoor Championships, I recall the sprint relay, the endurance relay. That's what we're going to see happen very shortly. This is a bit of a different wrinkle, Camilla. So are we going to see a different strategy in terms of when teams decide to change up their order or when they decide to switch out? Will those distances increase a little bit?
Definitely. I think keeping that average split consistent is obviously much trickier as you lengthen the distance out. And the relays that we're used to seeing are that sort of 2,000 meters that are broken down into each member of the team, 4 participants doing 500 meters each, which is a straightforward sprint as we've seen throughout today in the individual competition. Now we're extending that to a 5,000 meter competition. And so your strategy to be able to place the best athletes at the right time, to do those interchanges, but also how long those athletes row for. You might have one really strong person in the team who's really good over distance, but less sharp and less able to put out power. But you'll need to kind of interchange that with those people that do have that explosive energy to be able to row very fast for 250 meters, and how you weave that together over the period of what we've got between 13 and 16 minutes for the men's and the women's is going to be a really interesting and fascinating thing to watch how each of these teams approach that.
Niamh, whenever I see these races raced, I always think of Formula One because it looks like a pit crew or a pit stop when you see the athletes transition and get off the rower. So how much time are these teams spending on that strategy? Obviously, it might be a little bit more important, those transition pieces during a shorter race. The 5K, is it still going to be as important to kind of have those seamless transitions for these teams if they want to be on top of the leaderboard?
Absolutely, because yesterday we saw these crews racing, and we saw in particular like the New Wave CrossFit GBR crew that we're going to be seeing, that team, they were changing over every 25 seconds or so. Okay, so that's a lot of changeovers over the course of 13 minutes, but their changeovers were seamless. And we're going to see that, these crews have put in a lot of training into just doing those changeovers, and every member on the team has such an important role. Those two that we'll see them holding the straps, the person that gets off but immediately holds down the seat for the person getting on. All of those things make a difference, and it's the difference between a person pulling a stroke straight away when they sit on, or there being a delay because the seat goes away from them, or their feet aren't tied down fast enough or hard enough. So those changeovers, they come into play so much in these races, but particularly over this distance. And if the teams are going to be doing that many changeovers like we saw yesterday, it'll be the difference between winning and coming second.
Camilla, do you think there's an opportunity to pivot during this race? If someone just maybe doesn't have it that day, will the transitions start to shorten, or will they try and commit to the distances that they've decided on coming into this race?
I think it's really challenging to pivot during these races, Mike, because they'll have discussed and they'll have planned out a strategy beforehand. They'll have, discussed when they're communicating those changeovers, and we're going to see here as we're already underway with the first few strokes, and that New Wave CrossFit team that you mentioned, Niamh, in the bottom left hand side of our picture, their transitions were on the World Rowing Instagram feed yesterday, were some of the smoothest and slickest that I've seen. And so we'll see there Fraser Brent, who's taking those first few strokes for New Wave CrossFit, hop off and hop on the next member of that team. And did you see that? It was just absolutely flawless, Niamh. Those feet went into the shoes, the straps went on, and the first few strokes taken within milliseconds.
Yeah, and already like they changed over after about 100 meters. So looks like they're going to be sticking with that strategy. Of course, like, when you're rowing for such a short distance, if it's just 100 meters, you can get the splits much lower, obviously, because you're not rowing for very long. But the key then is that the changeovers have to match it and have to be quick, because you do not want to lose the time on the changeovers. We'll probably see other teams changing over every 250 meters or so, which obviously they're going to have much less changeovers, less time being lost. But as you said, New Wave CrossFit they're just seamless with it, and it's great to see. So we're seeing them on screen here now. A lot of heavy hitters in this crew. We have an Olympic champion from last year, Rory Gibbs in the men's 8. We have Elliot Owen, who rowed the Atlantic last year solo. So these guys, they know how to row.
Yeah, but again, we've got the Egyptian Rowing Federation on screen at the moment. We'll come back to New Wave CrossFit in just a second, but I'm always impressed by the group that the Egyptian Rowing Federation get together. They always seem to, whether there is rowing as individuals or rowing in the relays, they have a room full of athletes, coaches there to support. It's consistent year on year that they take part in these World Rowing Indoor Championships. Another great smooth transition there for them. They're currently sat in 3rd position behind New Wave and behind Team Finland. We'll talk about the Finnish quartet in just a second, but as we move now into the women's race, it's Team Finland also leading over on the women's side of the fence as well, but only a short way behind them, 7 meters, the Canadian squad from Golden Horseshoe Rowing. And this here on screen, the rowers relay forward to victory from Ukraine, really pushing on here. Lots of power going through that swing from the athlete on board at the moment, but they've got a little way to catch up here, Niamh. It's a long old race. We're not even 1,000 meters through yet, not even a fifth of this race complete, so they've got to be able to pace it somewhat as well through these short sprints.
Absolutely, yeah, it is a long race. You're, as talking between anywhere between 13 minutes for the fastest men's team. Yesterday it was up to over 20 minutes for this team from Ukraine. The rowers relay forward to victory, as they are naming themselves, and it's great to see the age difference. So on that team from Ukraine, you've from 18 up to 40 on the team, and that's what makes indoor rowing so versatile. We have huge age ranges. We had a lovely couple from Australia yesterday. They were both, I think, was it 80 years old, a husband and wife that were racing together. It's great that this sport is so versatile and accessible to so many rowers, and it's great to see them teaming up here now in these teams as well. So Team Finland leading it out in the men's relay here. Of course, we have Joel Nakanarinen, Versa champion from the last 2 years of the World Rowing Indoor Championships. Such a versatile rower, across short distance, long distance. We did expect to see him in the 500-meter race yesterday, but he did not start. Maybe he was saving himself for this race, and looks like it's working, because they're currently leading it out here now.
Yeah, indeed, but only 9 meters behind them, that New Wave CrossFit team that we've got on screen, the very strong Fraser Brent there, just taking the last few strokes of his segment as we move in towards 3,400 meters to go. This whole team looks like they're down at their local New Wave CrossFit gym with an audience as well to boot, so they've got plenty of support backing them for this 13 minutes or so of rowing. Another great smooth transition as we move over towards the Egyptian Rowing Federation, just 33 meters behind the leader, and that means only 15 meters off silver as well. Surprising to see Titans of Piraeus down in 4th position. We talked about how strong the Greeks were earlier. Spiridon Kalensis particularly had a great 500 meters in the men's semi-final, but they are just a few meters off bronze and off the podium as it stands at the moment, but still well over halfway to try and correct that. Back onto the women's side of things, well, we've only got webcam feed here from the team from Ukraine, but they do have 2 teams ahead of them, and given this performance at the moment, they would have to really turn things around to get themselves onto the podium. But a great race up front as the Canadians have gained another 3 meters here on Team Finland, Niamh.
Yeah, this is going to be very close right till the finish here. This crew from Canada, we didn't mention them much. They're currently sitting in 2nd position, just 9 meters behind. We have Sarah Pigeon, a Versa participant, and we see her all the time at the beach sprints as well over the years. Really strong rower. Team Finland there, who are currently leading it out, down at a split of 1:33 currently. 2 of those rowers, Ija and Emma, were first last year in the 2,000 meter relay, so well used to this sort of format, but of course they're just going to have to row more this year. So the men now starting to come up towards that halfway mark. It is still Team Finland ahead of New Wave CrossFit. New Wave CrossFit, of course, were, over 2 minutes faster than Finland yesterday in the racing yesterday. I think Team Finland probably were saving themselves for this one. They haven't let up the lead here now, just as they pass that halfway mark.
Yeah, indeed. They've burst out of the blocks, Lee. We'll have to see if they can push on and continue this pace. It's all about endurance, remember. But Team Finland, we've mentioned him earlier, one of the world's most versatile athletes as part of this team. Joel Nakarinen, not only a Versa champion from the World Rowing Indoor Championships last year, but also a World Rowing Beach Sprints champion, a world record holder on the indoor rowing machine. And we caught up with him in an interview not so long ago.
Indoor rowing, it's very simple. Some would consider maybe boring, but also very demanding mentally. Finns are known to be the happiest people in the world. Reason is probably that we don't expect too much, and to that mentality, training on an ergometer fits very well. I think on my indoor rowing career, key points have been motivation and persistency. I have been keep doing it a very long time, and I'm doing a good work no matter is it a good day or a bad day. And despite all the ups and downs during the career. After a couple of years, when I have raced in a Versa Challenge, I'm now very happy to return to the Finnish relay team. I'm founder of the team, and also I've been coaching the team these years. So now it's nice to be back in the relay. But also, besides the relay, I'm racing the individual 2K. Quite often it's the good relay team is formed from very good athletes, but it depends. Sometimes the team needs more practicing together, and especially this year because of the very open format, how many switches they can make on the ergometer, and preparing for all the tactics and making those switches very, very fast. So this year we have practiced the most, but some other years, if the format has been just 4 rowers racing the same time, then it emphasizes just strong individuals. I think the development of the indoor rowing during all these years, since the first World Championships 2018, where I was participating too, has been fascinating. And this day I'm most excited to see what is the future the indoor rowing probably is also in the field of esports and all the possibilities in that field.
Well, great to hear there from Joel Nakarinen some of his wise words about the pursuit of indoor rowing. Persistence and motivation is exactly what they're going to need to stay ahead here in the gold medal position in the endurance relay. We're now underneath, well under halfway to go. We're actually on the crest of seeing 3-digit numbers here in the open men's. Just 1,100 metres left to row. They're 45 metres behind. They've slipped back somewhat on Team Finland, and they're going to need all of that encouragement from the 20 or so spectators gathered behind them. But here are Team Egypt, who have also slipped back one position. The Greeks, Neve, have been playing their strategy well and have managed to creep themselves onto the podium.
Yeah, it's been great to see the race happening between Egypt and Greece. They've been going back and forth there while that video was playing. Every time a changeover happens, Egypt Rowing Federation come back on Titans of Piraeus, but things keep changing here. We're now seeing rowers relay forward to a victory of Ukraine here now, still sitting in that 3rd position. So there's 3 competitors or 3 teams in the women's. So of course, there'll just be 1st and 2nd awarded to those. And at the moment, it is Team Finland still leading it out here. They have 26 meters of a lead over Canada, the Golden Horseshoe rowing. Team Finland really pushing on here now. They're up at, in the men's, up at 59.60 strokes per minute with a split of 118. So really leading it out. New Wave CrossFit doing all they can, but it's down to, it's 52 meters now between them and Team Finland. 3 of the New Wave CrossFit team race last year and finished 4th, so just outside a podium position. That was Reese, Fraser and Elliott. So they're now this year being joined by Rory Gibbs, the Olympic champion, who I think has strengthened the team because they're up sitting in 2nd position here now. But it is Egyptian Rowing Federation now just falling back slightly, about 15 meters now behind Titans of Piraeus. Ali Hassan there of Egypt, we see him across all disciplines: flat water, beach sprints, coastals, indoor rowing, quite like Yol Nakaranen, and does really well in all disciplines. And he's one of the members there of the Egyptian Rowing Federation.
Yes, and as we move now into the final few hundred meters left to go here, the medals well within sight of these first few teams. 300 meters or less actually to go here for Team Finland, who will be starting to count those strokes, and a hugely impressive 1:16 splits being pulled here per 500 meters for them. They're up at 65 strokes per minute. That is almost unimaginable. You know, for some context, the rest of the leaders on this board, 55 for New Wave CrossFit, and even in the 40s, you know, that's high for sprinting on these indoor rowing machines. But as we come into the last bit, these changeovers getting quicker and quicker. This will be what New Wave have practiced, just 10 strokes or so each as they try and close down that distance to the leader. But with 50 meters left to go, no one's going to be catching Team Finland now. They cross the line in gold medal position and an average of 1:17.0 for 5 kilometers. That is quite astounding for them. New Wave CrossFit, they'll have enough of a buffer over the teams that we've got here on screen, both the Titans of Piraeus and the Egyptian Rowing Foundation, who we've got there on your picture. But wowee, just looking at those times coming through, a leading time of less than 13 minutes, much faster than the qualifying times that we had here in this endurance relay, and celebrations all round. And just 3 seconds after 5 kilometers, Neve, separating the podium from those who didn't quite make it.
Yeah, this really illustrates how people were holding back a little bit yesterday, I think, because Team Finland there 2.5 minutes quicker today than they were yesterday. Now, yesterday there wasn't a qualifying round because there was 5 entries, so it was a straight final. But they were still clocking up times yesterday and practicing those changeovers and things. But yeah, great job there by Team Finland. 12:50.2, incredible stuff. And then we didn't mention new rowing, MT1, People's Republic of China there. They're the 5th team in the men's relay open. They're just coming into their final 150 meters. Team Finland in the women's open, then they're coming into their last 400 meters or so here now. Really great splits as well from them. 1:35, 1:36. They've been sticking to that pretty much all throughout. 50 meters behind them, it is the team from Canada. Not sure they're going to be able to catch them at this stage. There's about 300 meters left here now, and of course we're seeing on our screen the team from Ukraine rowers relay forward to victory. They're about 1,000 meters now left to go in this race. Lots of tired bodies there from the Egyptian Rowing Federation that we're seeing on screen. So them just missing out on that podium place there. They were 4th in a time of 13:16.9.
Yeah, it's now down to the line for gold here for Team Finland. Can they do the double, both men's and women's here in this endurance relay event? That would be quite special for the Finns, but no surprise, their team's extremely strong on both sides here. And I think inevitable now as we enter the final 100 meters, the final 15 or so strokes, that will be for Team Finland to clinch gold. Their stroke ratings come right down. They were down at 26 strokes a minute just a second ago. go. But that final push sees them rocket the rating up 61 strokes a minute to get over the line, an average time of 1:33.1. They finish in 15 minutes and 31 seconds. That is just absolutely outstanding here to get sub 16 for this women's team. Brilliant stuff. The Canadians will also finish in a time of 15:43.6, a huge improvement on their heat time, and that just goes to show you the sort of adrenaline that these finals can inspire. Golden Horseshoe Rowing will come away with silver, and as we see the final few strokes here from the Ukrainian team from Forward to Victory, we're also seeing, Mike, some post-racing scenes from the New Wave CrossFit team there in the bottom left-hand side picture of your screen.
Well, it's funny, we call this the endurance relay, but just how fast those sprints were, it's kind of I don't know, we might need a sprint endurance name, or might have to workshop the name of that race, but it was incredible. In fact, Team Finland, the male team, was so impressive that we had forecast the top time would be 13 minutes. They even beat that by 10 seconds. That's how fast Team Finland was. And yes, they had a clean sweep with both the men's and women's competition. Just one note on the male competition. So typically when you see a team relay race in person, only the 4 team members are able to kind of act as the pit crew and brace the team members' feet as they were rowing. Because this is a virtual competition, the teams were able to use non-team members to brace the rowers' feet. We saw Team Egypt using that strategy there, but just something that we wanted to make everyone aware of. They were able to use non-team members for that segment of the competition. But I mean, if the endurance relay was 1:15 or so in terms of the stroke rate for the entirety of that, when we look at the team relay, which of course is 3 kilometers shorter, I can only imagine what those teams are going to be able to put together. Now, Niamh, do you think Finland, if they want to do the double for the 2K next weekend, is that something, would they be the favorite for that? Or is the extra 3K, if there's a team that maybe is a little bit faster, their transitions are a little bit better, would you say Finland would be a favorite for that?
I think they will be very strong in it. To be honest, I thought the changeovers were going to be a little bit longer in this race. When I saw 5,000 meters, I thought they might row for greater distances, but as we saw, they were changing over very quick. Now, in the 2,000 meters, I did this relay back in Paris in 2020. It was a mixed relay, and we decided to change every 250 meters. And that's kind of the standard in the 2,000 meter races. People will change. So you'll be rowing twice, so there'll be 8 changeovers. But I think just, going by the splits, and as you mentioned, it wasn't really an endurance race, even though it was called that, the power and the speed that were coming out of these rowers, that they'll be well suited to the 2,000 meter race next weekend as well.
I just want to follow up on that, Niamh. So you mentioned generally you would switch every 250 meters. Would that, I mean, that's assuming, I think, all 4 of your competitors, all 4 of your racers are a similar fitness level or similar racing level. Would you ever say you take 250, but you may be a little bit stronger than another competitor? Maybe they're only going to take 200, or generally is it everyone's taking 250 and we just leave it at that?
I think it's up to teams in particular. Sometimes teams will be very different abilities, and yes, if you have more powerful rowers, of course you want to use them much more. Like, the rules of these is that all rowers must race at least one time any distance, whereas it was a mixed relay that I did back in 2020, and as far as I remember, we had 2 men, 2 women, and so we all had to kind of split up the distance evenly so that the men weren't doing all the work, because obviously their splits would be a little bit lower. So we had to split it up pretty evenly, and we chose to do it every 250. That's kind of the standard that you see at a lot of, particularly the national events. But let's see, it might change next week. People might take different strategies, might be changing every 100 meters, maybe every 500 meters, really depends. And we do have some mixed relays next week, which are always really exciting to watch as well.
So Camilla, we're seeing the Ukrainian team just about to wrap up here. They have less than 100 meters. So when you're in an in-person competition, the crowd can kind of carry you over the finish line, even though everyone is already completed. You're the last team on the floor. How are these 4 women kind of staying focused with kind of silence around them and knowing they're the last team on the floor as they just finished their race right now?
Well, look, one of the things, I guess, the beauty of the team relay, and you've seen it there, camaraderie, right? Like, they'll all be talking to one another, they'll be communicating to one another, and they'll also be motivating everyone. And you can see here as well that they've got extra support there for filming and for coaching just on the sidelines. But I think that's the benefit of being part of a team relay, is that you're never in it alone. And so the rowers relay team forward to victory will have been able to carry each other through right towards the end, despite not being on the floor in a stadium. But brilliantly close racing here. Even the top two teams separated by really not much, given that it was a almost 16-minute race, just to have 12 seconds or so separating those two teams close until the very end.
Well, thank you, Camilla. Finland, Canada, Ukraine, our top three in the women's endurance relay. So now we'll pivot away from the teams. We have more individual racing 500-meter finals coming up after this short ad break.
Indoor rowing is more than just numbers. It's making friends while working out. It's having fun and getting strong, stroke by stroke. The EXA app has it all. Share your passion with a worldwide community. Explore mesmerizing locations. And push your limits with training plans. Indoor rowing has never been easier. The world is your workout. Start rowing it.
Very cool. Okay, grand finals on the way. We have 4 races remaining: lightweight women, lightweight men, and then of course the men and women's 500-meter final. Lots of speed is forthcoming. And Neve, we had mentioned for these lightweight competitors that they had to weigh in yesterday. They had to weigh in today. Now, does that weigh in, that takes them through the entire day of competition?
Yes, exactly. So today they would have weighed in between 1 and 2 hours before their semi-final. They didn't have to weigh in before the final again. So they did have a bit of time there, about 2.5 hours of rest in between, where they would have been able to fuel up, hydrate, rest up a little bit. But definitely, I think the advantage, and we mentioned it earlier, the advantage of doing it virtually is that, most of these athletes are at home, having experienced racing lightweight back in 2020, where I had to travel from Ireland to Paris, and you're dealing with the travel, different food, sleeping in a different bed. I just found that weigh-in procedure a little tricky, whereas when you're at home, you're eating your own food, you're sleeping in your own bed, and I just think it makes that weigh-in process, particularly for those who are on the cusp of it, a little bit easier, because it does add an element, a different element to the racing when you are going for that lightweight.
We're just going through the highlights of the endurance relay that we just saw a few moments ago. So Camilla, I'm going to assume that because, again, we're going for gold medals, world championships, it's 500 meters, it's very fast, we're probably going to see some false starts. So I do recall seeing some false starts in previous years that were maybe a little bit on purpose, almost some gamesmanship to try and get into the heads of your other competitors. So I guess what would the strategy be for doing that? And also for the other athletes, maybe how do you maybe calm yourself down and not let a false start kind of impact your preparation before a race begins?
Yeah, look, I think it's certainly it's much easier to do a false start in a fully virtual environment, because you can't see across the row of everyone that's starting up next to you. But in terms of gamesmanship, I guess, if you're sort of forcing people to go off and take their first 10 strokes at full pelt, and you knowingly have that opportunity to have sort of, get yourself rested, allow others to go ahead and to burn that first, little bit of sprinting energy, then it can set you ahead, I guess, in that sense. And look, it's a very, very fine balance to get right, especially if you're wanting to set off, even intentionally you want to set off and be the first person out the blocks. It can create an unintentional false start. And in terms of recuperating yourself and getting yourself back ready for that, look, this is all things that they would have rehearsed, they'd have practiced, and even if they've been competitors here at the World Rowing Indoor Championships for many years, they've probably experienced at some point in their careers, so they can call upon that experience to be able to set the handle down, either take a few very light strokes, pause, recoup, rethink, and get refocused. And the one thing I think that these guys will have to watch out for is maybe just a little bit of a reservation on taking that first stroke right after a false start. I think people are very keen not to false start again, and that can sometimes allow them to just be a little bit hesitant perhaps in taking that first stroke that could leave them behind.
There's a look at the competitors that are racing in this lightweight women's race. Neve, who do you have your eye on out of the 20 competitors vying for our top 3 positions?
Yeah, of course. Our fastest from earlier on in the semi-final was Sagi Maliki with a time of 1:38.3. Now, she is just 20 years old. Compared then to second place, it was Margaret Varma of Estonia, 42 years old. And actually in the top 10 there, you have ranging from 20 years old right up to 55. We mentioned it earlier, just how great it is to see just the different age ranges competing at this level at the World Rowing Indoor Championships. It's so good to see. So there was not much. There was 5 seconds separating first to 20th here now, so we're going to see times are going to get a lot quicker, I think. And in these short races things can change very quickly, so you just have to go for it from the very start now.
Early 20s to early 50s. That's absolutely incredible. So, Camilla, what is the golden age of rowing? When are these competitors in their absolute prime, even though we're seeing primes being extended by some of these performances?
Do you know what? It's actually a really tricky question within rowing. We have across most categories a sort of under 23 level. The juniors run up to under 19. Then there's an under 23 category. Here it's 21 to 22. So, there's sort of age definitions up to that point. So I think from 23 onwards is when we tend to release people out into the world. Let them compete against what the best of the rest have to offer. And that 23 to 39 category is certainly the broadest and when we'd expect people to be in their racing prime, hence why it's such a big category before we start sort of dissecting things in sort of 5-year intervals as we get later on through the age groups. But there's a really huge range here. Our winner from the semi-finals is in that 21 to 22 category, so keep an eye out for Zara Zafar, so young and still so much left of her career to go.
Well, it's going to be an exciting race. Neve, take it away with the play-by-play.
Yeah, so we can see on our screen there, they've stopped rowing, so they're waiting for the instructions to come on their monitors. This is the joy of them all being hooked up to the same time team home system. So they're all seeing the exact same thing on their screens. They're sitting ready, they get the attention, and then it will say go, and off they go. And as well on their monitors, not only are they seeing their own data, their split, their time, but they can see where they're coming, they can see where the leader is coming, so they know what they have to do to get up if they want to get up to that those podium positions. So first few strokes after being pulled and things will start to change. So if you're watching on your screen, you will see those yellow boats start to change around now as we get to things changing. It is Pernilla Bockerman of Finland leading it out. Really quick sprint here off the blocks, Camilla.
Yeah, Pernilla Bockerman getting back towards her winning ways after setting the fastest time through the open heats at just 24 years of age. I think she'll be gunning for a time far better than that 1:38.1 that we saw 3 rounds ago. She's managed to get through both of the open heats, the continental qualifications, the semi-finals relatively unscathed, but this is where the gold medal is on the line. She's falling back somewhat now. She's in 4th position, and our race leader now, Sarita Christina Hansen, a name that we see time and time again, Neve, a gold medalist back in the 20 to 39 category from 2024, was crowned our champion and looking good to take the title once again here.
Yeah, absolutely. She's up at 50 strokes per minute now as she comes into the final 100 meters of her race. And as well, it's important to note that not only are we going to crown world champions here, but also within this category, but we also have the age categories that will be getting first, second, and third, and rankings throughout the whole competition. But here, about to take the lead, I think, Miriam Malakova of Ukraine, just about to take the lead at the finish line from Sarita Christina Hansen there of Denmark. She was hanging on to first place, but Miriam there of Ukraine just got in at the last moment, a time of 1:37.7, much quicker than the 1:38.2 as we saw the fastest time yesterday, and the fastest time earlier 1:38.3. So we did say that these races would be much quicker, Camilla.
Wow, that race was won in the final 70 metres. A huge surge of speed from the Ukrainian Mamalakova, who was absolutely sensational in the final 10 strokes or so, dethroning Christina Hansen from last year's win, our 2024 champion, having to settle for silver in this lightweight women's 500 metres. And great to see Nurel Huda Arafa maintain her bronze medal from last year's podium. Great stuff all round, but a new champion this year for 2025. Mike.
Well, I think the most impressive part for me from our new champion was that she was up walking around immediately after the race. That is absolutely incredible, pulling that hard, standing on top of the World Championship leaderboard, and Miriam is able to just walk around with her phone like nothing happened. Talk about recovery. So that's 3 races over 2 days. And Neve, we've talked about the need for that preparation, for that recovery. I'm sure her younger age helps as well, but that's really what you need to do. It's not just performance on game day. It's how you get there as well. And her strategy obviously worked out beautifully.
Yeah, that would have been an important part of the preparations for this weekend, was to actually get used to those multiple races across 2 days. You know, you had to prepare as if you were going to have those 3 races over 2 days. And I think those people who would have taken the time to actually practice that and practice the fueling and the hydration and the recovery strategies, particularly for these lightweight women and men that we'll see shortly, I think those strategies is what would set apart the people that performed well and maybe better than what they thought they would have.
Anything that surprised you from that race, Camilla, other than, of course, we have a new champion at the top, but what stuck out for you?
I think what stuck out for me is that ability to make an impact in the final 100 meters, because it didn't look like Hansen was dropping off at all. And it's really difficult, as most athletes, if you've ever sat on a rowing machine will know, to be able to negative split that way and to have that ability to give more when you've already rowed 400 meters. That's really unusual to be able to do, because you are flat out in these finals, and to step on for the final 10 strokes, I think that was a really impressive ability from Mamalakova of Ukraine. I'm just in awe that she was able to do that with such conviction in the closing and dying stages of a 500-meter race.
Well, that's a great point, because Neve, we were talking about earlier in the coverage of that negative split. It's unlikely that anyone's potentially going to be able to pull that off, because it is so difficult, and she was able to do that. So that's just an athlete who knows their training and knows exactly what they're capable of, and to achieve that at a young age, I mean, that's very impressive.
Very impressive. And Shane Farmer touched on it earlier. You know, it's the difference between those people who were able to hold a little bit in the tank in earlier stages, like in the semi-final earlier, because they knew they'd have another race to do this evening. And, you know, by allowing that little bit in the tank, that allowed her, I think, to push it there at the end rather than dying off.
We're just going to keep going with the racing action. Lightweight men up next. We just had a quick look at the start list, but notice that there's 21 people competing. Again, with margins so thin, we've had a couple of ties. The athletes are all in position. A lot of webcams are on. And I don't know if you noticed this as well, from the semifinal to the final, Camilla, a lot more people are accompanying the screens as well. So the excitement is starting to build here.
Yeah, they've managed to get themselves some supporters down to their rowing clubs, to their gyms, into their houses even, to be able to get them through this final when a medal is on the line. So we'll have to wait and see what support is going to be the winning factor here across all of these athletes. Lots of athletes from Europe, from the Middle East, and from all the way, our furthest competitor from where I am right now certainly is all the way over in New Zealand. So great to see such a spread. Blair Johannes van Stipien is our competitor from down under, but one thing I do want to know, it's so impressed by these young athletes leading the way, Niamh. We talked about the 20-year-old in the previous race, putting it to everyone through the semi-finals, but our semi-final leader from the Islamic Republic of Iran, Amireza Abdali, just 19 years of age here.
Yeah, really young, and to have set a time of 1:23.8 earlier on in the semi-finals, like incredible stuff, incredible time. Again, like the range between first and 20th place here, 1:23.8 up to 1:27.3. So these times, particularly for lightweight, you know, these rowers are obviously having to make weight. Some of them will make it quite easily. Others will have had, you know, a more difficult challenge getting there to that, making that 75-kilo weight today. But to pull those sort of times, you know, is just really incredible. So lots to watch out for. Lovely to see two Irish rowers there. We have Sam O'Neill and Kenneth MacDonald. Kenneth setting a world record time yesterday. So he was second yesterday out of the continental knockouts and down in 14th. But I feel like he was holding a little bit back earlier on. So let's see what he can pull now.
Great to be able to hear the sounds from some of these environments. I can hear the cheers, the screams from some of the athletes, getting that last bit of energy out, the thigh slaps, all coming through to us here on the broadcast. And the disco lights are back in Team Finland. Great to see Jonas Makapelto there. And looks like he's got the bar set, waiting and ready for him after he's finished this race, perhaps for celebrations, but we'll have to wait and see, because we're now underway with this lightweight men's 500-meter final, and out of the blocks, well, difficult to tell for now, but I think it is Abdali who's managed to sprint into the lead. But with 400 meters left to go, things will start to filter out. Makapelto being now our race leader with the disco lights from Finland.
Yeah, I'm not sure anyone is hearing us, Camilla, over that support and the shouts that are happening from all around the world, but it's so great to be part of the atmosphere in these gyms and rowing clubs and homes all around the world. But yes, brilliant lead here. Look at this, 59 strokes per minute from Jonas Makapelto of Finland. He was first back in 2022 in the lightweight men's 30-39 category, so he knows what it's like to be up on that podium. But look at the stroke rate from him. He has not let it go. He's up at 58, 59 strokes per minute with 100 meters or so to go.
Yeah, 57 strokes a minute and not letting up. That's the kind of pace you need to be at to be in the medals here in this final of the lightweight men's 500 meters. Race leader there, Jonas Makapelto, still clinging on. 61 strokes a minute. He's still managing to lift into these final 10 strokes. That is so impressive to go up and up. And he will finish there a time of 1:21.9 to be crowned champion ahead of Adam Magoob, who he's been fighting all through the rounds of progression here. Eslam Gasser there on your screen was right up there through some of the middle part of that race, but not quite enough to get onto the podium. But a brilliant race all round. And Makapelto, just when you thought that he couldn't hang on much longer, Niamh, he just got faster and faster.
He got faster and faster. Yeah, he definitely had to practice that up at 60 strokes per minute. That's not something you can just do like that. It must have been a strategy. He went out, but look at him. The celebrations, delighted with life. But look at the times, like between third, fourth, fifth, nothing separating them. And I think Kenneth MacDonald, after setting a world record yesterday, is after beating that time again. Yesterday it was 1:23.5. Today 1:23.4. So after setting a world record yesterday, a new one again today. But incredible times there. Nothing separating these rowers.
Yeah, nothing separating these rowers indeed. And but I mean, as I say, great stuff. Makapelto of Finland. Fun fact about Makapelto, Niamh, I don't know if you know this, he holds 2 Guinness World Records alongside now his gold medal for the World Rowing Indoor Championships. Do you know what for?
I'm gonna say no. I don't know.
He has 2 Guinness World Records for pull-ups. So not only is he strong on the indoor rowing machine, he's also strong in the gym as well. He's got the Finnish record for pull-ups. He can do 88,
Wow.
which is pretty impressive. So another thing to add to his collection of accolades, a World Rowing Indoor Champion once again, a Guinness World Record holder, and also a firefighter by day. So brilliant stuff from him, and just some of the other results there. And these are the scenes from all around the world. As we've always said, Team Egypt come to these competitions in force, and this year no exception. But yeah, some real action here in these finals, and very competitive indeed. And great to see so many contenders in the final from Egypt, actually, for their racing alongside one another in those pictures.
Yeah, and incredible to see. I think that's 3 gold medals going to Finland now already. They won the men's relay, women's relay, and now the lightweight men's 500 meters. So they're going to be pretty happy after the first day of finals. Of course, we have more coming up next weekend. So let's see if they can match that with the 2000 meters that we have in the relays next weekend.
Well, I think maybe the secret is the disco light. So maybe, Neve, with your clients, you have to get the disco lights at your club, because that apparently is the key for Finland. You mentioned 3 gold medals, tremendous performance by all of those competitors. Again, only 6 seconds separating, or 6 or 7 seconds from first place gold medal to 21st place in that race. So very, very impressive performances. So that is our lightweight competitors. We're going to say goodbye to them. We have the women coming up next. And then, of course, the men's 500-meter final. It's interesting coming. Well, we have the women's final here. So here's our start list for the 20 women that we will be seeing. The times, of course, will get faster, as these are our bigger athletes from what we saw in the lightweight competition. So yeah, going to be even faster what we're going to see here. Is there any would these athletes, Camilla, be watching what just happened in the lightweight competition, or are they purely in their own zone? Does that have any impact on what they're going to do coming up shortly? Are they watching that, or completely focused on their own race?
Do you know what? I've thought about this in previous years, because for me, myself as an athlete, I'd always have thought, no, absolutely not. You know, I'd be completely locked in, going through my preparation, my warm up, not focusing on other races that came before me that had no impact on my own. However, I would say that in the last few years of commentary, I've been really surprised by the number of people that do have the broadcast on whilst they're racing. I guess it makes them feel more connected. They can look at what's going on, feel like that they're part of the event. And so if you are listening to us and watching and racing in just a few moments' time, best of luck to you, because I know that there probably will be a few people who have got this broadcast on in the background whilst they're racing. So yeah, great to see again a wide spread of athletes, a couple coming to us from the west coast of America, lots of athletes clustered in Europe here for this women's race, and also we've got one athlete representing from Australia as well. So brilliant that we've got such a wide spread. Stephanie Praxer is our athletes coming to us from down under in this occasion. But yeah, lots of nations represented here, Mike.
Well, speaking of that Australian athlete, Neve, we mentioned that, like, how do you prepare for this? So it's almost, 8 o'clock in the morning in Australia. So what was that preparation like over the past few hours? Because the semifinal would have been even earlier than that. How do you get ready for 2 hard-fought world championship level races like this?
Yeah, so her semi-final would have been, over 2 hours ago. That would have been 6 a.m. So she would have had to have been up, and I assume eating a couple of hours before that. So I would imagine that she kind of changed her body clock up to this week, and maybe over the last week or so, and started getting up early, getting up at that 4 a.m., having something to eat, jumping on the erg, and preparing like that. Because if you do it as a once-off, if she did it today for the first time, I'm not sure it would work out very well. So it's really important that you do prepare and kind of get your body ready for it, and prepare as best you can. But yeah, seeing all the rooms, people's homes, people's gyms, rowing clubs from right around the world here. So great to get an insight into where people are rowing. Of course, we have some support here for Teresa Horskova from Czechia here, getting ready to gear up. Again, they'll be watching the monitors to see when when it's time to get going.
Yeah, that's a new tactic, isn't it, Neve? Having someone row alongside you that isn't actually in the race, but I guess creating that competitive environment with whoever it is that you can get to race alongside you. So let's see how that fares for Teresa. We're underway here. Tons of noise, I think mostly coming from Hassan's camp there. In the middle part of your picture, lots of support coming for that dream from that gym for Hassani of Morocco. But as we move through 100 metres, that's when we'll get a good idea as to our race leader. And it is the Dane at the moment, Hansen, that takes the lead, 1:28. But hot on the heels, Rachel Fisher down at 1:24. That's going to pull her into the lead here, Neve.
Yeah, Rachel Fisher, she was very strong earlier on in the semi-finals as well, but we're seeing things starting to change here. Stephanie Prixka of Australia moving up here. She has it down to a metre, which is absolutely nothing here, you know, between the two of them. Rachel Fisher up, taking a similar approach to Finland in the last race, so maybe she was watching because she's up in the high 50s with her stroke rate. But Stephanie now of Australia just after moving into that lead.
Yeah, Stephanie Prixer, she was a lightweight rower back in the day, but transitioned to sprint cycling. So we know she's got those big fast twitch muscles to get her over the line. But it's her going head to head with Fisher from Great Britain as they move in towards the line. It's going to be very, very close. And has she gone too early here? There she is on screen. Stephanie Prixer back in the driving seat here. She was aiming for a 1:28, her qualification score, trying to go underneath that. Just 19 metres left to go there for Patricia Batista on screen, but a brilliant race all round. Stephanie Prixer, 1:27. She's managed to get there and take that gold medal. A brilliant finish there from the American Ella Fox to sneak into silver, and another Finnish medal here. What a brilliant weekend it's been if you're a competitor from Finland for Kate Karpatski. Case Karpatski even, a brilliant finish there, and Fisher missing out on the medals, Neve.
Yeah, Ella Fox there of USA, a former Versa participant, came out of nowhere there. She another one who saved enough in the tank and just went for it in those last 100 meters, went from 5th to 4th up to 2nd there, 1:28.3. So that was probably a strategy she had in her mind all weekend to kind of maybe hold back a little bit over the weekend and then just give it her all in the final. We mentioned about, you know, whether people go too fast or too soon. Rachel Fisher was doing so high there right throughout and just fell back outside the podium places at the end there, 1:29.5. Zara Zafar then of Egypt just missing out as well, 5th position after winning the continental knockout heats yesterday. So she was she matched her time pretty much from yesterday, but just not enough to get on the podium today.
What a performance by Stephanie. Not only was she competing by herself in her house, she had no support system around her, but we mentioned she was probably up, at 4 a.m. local time. She's had 2 high-level races and comes away with a gold medal. So I think, Camilla, anyone who has an excuse of, well, I don't feel like rowing at this time, I need everything perfect around me, I think Stephanie kind of put that to rest. You don't need a perfect situation to put forth a gold medal winning performance.
No, she must have done all of the preparation to get her there. I'm sure it wasn't just a case of, like Neve said, waking up on the day and then putting it in. I'm sure she's put in lots of thought and prep for this. And like I said, she'd gone out with a lot of intention, right? She had a goal. One of the things that she'd put on her bio is that she really wanted to break that 1:28 ceiling that she'd been coming up against time and time again. And with a finish time of 1:27, you know, regardless of the fact that she had no support network around her, it seemed, she had that goal to aim for and to go for. So clearly enough intrinsic. A world championship winning performance. Absolutely fantastic stuff.
Well, if she races locally, she'll have to tell the Australian Federation, early morning races. That is the key for me. Make sure those races are in the early morning. We've actually had a chance to talk to a couple winners from earlier races about their performances.
I'm so grateful. Thanks to all the people around me. It was amazing. It's my first time, and I'm. Thank you so much for the race to people on the other side of the world. It was really amazing. So thank you.
A nice crowd, a lot of family and friends out here. I had a great fun led by Fraser. 2 ways to the gym. Such an awesome setup, great community. Wow, great fun. It's not something I'm used to. You know, we're sort of 2K racing in the national team, learning those switchovers and doing like 10, 15 strokes. He's pulling my leg in it. No,
you're on the license.
But yeah, credit to Ethan, the Greece and everyone involved. Just had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm really happy. I couldn't even anticipate it be so good. I was counting on a bit of slower time. So yeah, I'm really happy.
Our clock is ticking. The race to protect and restore our healthy waters is on. We need to act now before it's too late. Join World Rowing and WWF as we pull together to tackle the threat. Healthy waters are essential to water and food security, tackling our climate and nature crises and driving sustainable development. But across the world, our rivers, lakes and coasts are at risk. Our initiative will ensure that healthy waters are at the heart of all rowing. Let's inspire collaboration and develop joint projects with our national rowing federations and WWF offices that push for real impact. And we need your help. Healthy waters are vital for us all. Join the initiative, and together we can make a difference. Visit the World Rowing website to get involved.
Well, it is time for the fastest race of the day, the men's final 500-meter sprint. And Neve, what I really love about indoor rowing is you can look at someone like Usain Bolt, the 100-meter champion, and you can know he's fast, but you don't really have an idea of just how fast he is. What I love about a Concept2 rowing machine is you can see these athletes put up a 110, a 112 for a 500-meter, and then you can try and hit that exact pace if you can. I've never been able to even get under 120, and these athletes are doing it for the entirety of a 500 meters. So it really gives you an opportunity to see just how strong and powerful and fast these athletes are that you can't really see in other speed sports.
Yeah, absolutely. The speeds we're seeing, the times we're seeing are absolutely incredible here in these races. Lee Davies of Great Britain here won 15.3. Not sure if anyone is going to break the world record of this category at the moment. The men's open world record is 109.8. So a lot to make up there if anyone is hoping to break that record today. But we are going to see some fast times. And, you know, the times from the World Open heats to the continental knockouts to the semis earlier today have been getting faster. So today we're going to see some really impressive times, I think.
Camille, how much does technique play in a race this fast and this powerful?
I think we see a lot of different techniques. There's not sort of one uniform technique for the sprinting distances, I would say, of 500 meters and fewer, because I think when we get to the 2 kilometers next weekend, there's a more kind of uniform pattern for being efficient, for saving energy. That's obviously not quite as key here in the 500 meters, where it's all about loading power. And that can be done in lots of different ways, depending on the type of athlete you are. If you're taller, if you're shorter, if you've got sort of better trunk strength versus leg strength. We might see people at higher ratings versus people that are much longer, and it will really vary. So I think we'll see, you know, sort of 2 or 3 different forms of technique depending on whether you're much shorter, you can get up and down the slide a lot quicker, that are much higher rating, and sort of taller, longer athletes that might be a little bit lower on the stroke rating but are so powerful and will use a huge swing to be able to produce the wattage that we're going to see here. That'll get people down in that sort of sub 115 zone, which I suspect will be the sort of ballpark that we'll need to get from these athletes to get them onto the podium.
Well, one of the most powerful athletes in the field is Spiridon Kalensis, who is potentially, many people's pick to come away with a gold medal in this 500-meter race. We had a chance to speak to him earlier, and here's what he had to say.
Well, my expectation, is of course to be a world champion, like to to gain the gold. So it's definitely a new experience that for me, because it's virtually. Well, first of all, like body makes a good athlete. Like if you're tall or if you're heavy, that gives you a huge advantage. Unfortunately, I'm not that tall. I'm only 6'1", so I lost that advantage. So the other part that you need to do is like train hard, like have power, in order to row fast. But on the other hand, you have to be able to keep the lactic threshold like really high, just to keep power for a long period of time, like to at least 1 minute. So the strategy part is always a huge part in the 500, because it's only 1 minute, but if you start like full power, like all out, you're gonna burn. And if you burn like in the middle or like at 300, then 200 meters is a lot. Like it's gonna affect your split. So I was always doing like maybe 80 meters, maybe 100 meters like fast, so I can have a low split average. And then I was trying to keep pushing like a certain like power, and try to hold that, and like whatever.
It's funny hearing Spiridon say just matter-of-factly, a 500-meter race, that's about a minute. Well, it's about a minute for him and the rest of the competitors. For the rest of us, 500 meters takes a little bit longer than that. So let's take a look at the list of where all of these athletes are from, because Niamh, again, this is a global competition. We're seeing athletes from all over the world, and we mentioned our friends down under, so another very early start for some of our competitors.
Yeah, absolutely. Early start, but let's see if it pays dividends, just like in the last race. Women's Open champion is from Australia. The 4 a.m. start did not put Stephanie up or down at all. So let's see what happens in this race. I'm laughing at Spurtus there, mentioning he's not that tall at 6'1". I would consider that pretty tall.
It's a different game for some of these athletes. Camilla, what do you see shaking out in this race?
I just think that we're going to see the margins tighten once again. We talked about this race in particular from the semi-finals being just 2 seconds separating our top 20. I think that we'll see that sort of narrow once again, especially for the top 10. And I think we'll see surprises. I think people were holding back, Jonas Kuvalainen being one of them, that I think that we maybe saw just taking foot off the gas a little bit in that second half of the second semi-final. You can see him there looking to try and replicate his teammate from the lightweight men's side, Macapelto. So we'll see what he can do. Lee Davis, there he is on screen. He got the fastest time through those semi-finals, and we'll have to wait and see. Look at those weights he's got holding down his ergo there, his ergometer. That means that it won't move and shuffle. Some of these athletes are so powerful that it means that the rowing machine moves as they take their strokes and push that pressure down. So that's what those weights are there to stop and prevent, is to help them remain nice and grounded. Great also to see there on the screen the athlete in the sort of one in from the left on the top row. I think that's Loic Schalbetter, who actually was accompanying one of the female athletes earlier on, Niamh. I think that's racing buddy there in that top left-hand side. I wonder whether she's going to do the same after her race.
We might see her appear. And interestingly, he joined with Spiridon Kalentis, who we just saw in the interview, as well as Jeremy Weaver, who we will see as well. 3 of them were part of the International Men of Mystery relay team last year that won the 2,000 meter relay, but they decided to separate today. Looks like it was a false start here for the men. Again, we're seeing that's after happening a couple of times now today. Throughout the day, you can see some people are okay, some people just immediately get up and stand and see what's happening to make sure that it wasn't them that did it. You can see them texting in frustration maybe there.
Now, do you know what, Neve? I think that actually, having had a bit of a look, Alberto Fernandez of Spain was just rowing, just warming up, and actually hadn't realised that they'd been given the instruction to stop rowing. I think that's where the false start came from. I could see it on the screen, and there he is, Fernandez. He was just taking strokes. You know, it wasn't like he was ready to race. So this time around, let's hope that those instructions will come up on the screen and that we'll all be pulled forward to attention as quick as possible. And it was great to get a bit of a reaction there from Charles Butter when we were shouting him out. Just goes to show, like Mike was saying earlier, some of these guys are tuning into the broadcast as they're racing to feel involved, to feel in the race. And we'll be about to get started once again. Everyone has come to a stop now that we can see on our screen. And we'll need to calm the nerves once more, ready to get that first stroke underway. And in total, Neve, you know, just over 50 strokes here really is not very much to make your impact in this final of the day.
No, and every stroke counts, you know, from that very first one. We've mentioned many times about those first few have to be short and fast, you know, sitting up tall, not really full strokes to get the splits down, to get the stroke rate up and to get the flywheel going. And there was a nice clean start that time for everyone. Matt Snare of USA, we saw him on our screen just taking the lead here over Lucas Rukin of Germany, just sitting in second. Jonas, as you mentioned, from Finland, currently in that third position, and Spiridon Kalentas of Greece, who we saw a little while ago in the interview, in fourth. Very early stages here in this very short race, so things are changing back and forth here between Matt, Lucas and Jonas.
Yeah, a couple of new players here up at the top of the field, and we did say we were perhaps expecting a bit of a surprise. Matt Snare bursting from all the way down in the centre of the pack, 7th overall in the semi-finals. Can he pull himself right up and onto the podium? He's at a 1:15 at the moment, 44 strokes a minute, but with 10 strokes left to play, as we saw in the lightweight women's race, this can all still change. Kalentis climbing up the leaderboard as he might. I think he might pull himself onto the podium. He's closing in. Indeed he is, behind Kuvalainen now, just 30 more meters less than. Oh, what a brilliant performance to finish there by Jonas Kuvalainen of Finland. A real negative split. That's exactly what we saw earlier on today. A race-winning mentality from the Finn. That must be one lucky ergo. And once again, Neve, the discotheque lights reign victorious.
Fourth gold medal for Finland. How amazing. And as you said, it was just in the last moments there that he took the podium, that gold medal from Matt Snare, who had been leading it out for a lot of that race. 1:13.5 the winning time, 1:13.6 that silver medal time, and 1:13.9 from Spiridon Kalentis of Greece. Hans Lorwald there just missing out, 1:14.2. Lee Davies, maybe there from Great Britain, gave too much earlier on in his semi-final, down in 8th position there. It was interesting to see his technique, very short strokes throughout the race there, but incredible stuff from Finland. 4th gold medal after the weekend.
0.4 of a second separating first from third. What a tremendous race. What a tremendous capper of a great first weekend of competition for the 2025 World Rowing Indoor Championships. And we've talked about the training, the preparation, and just all these guys, the power output they're able to provide. And after the race is over, Camilla, they're able to recover very quickly, where mere mortals like us would probably be flat on our backs for minutes on end. It's just, again, you put the work in and you combine that with talent, you see performances like this.
Yeah, and doing it time and time again, it improves that recovery window. It allows you to recover quicker. A lot of these guys will have been doing these back-to-back pieces in training, and that's what it's all for there, for the reaction that we got from Jonas Kuvalainen of Finland, who has just had a sensational weekend and a sensational couple of years. You know, he won last year in 2024 at the time of 1:13.2, so 0.3 of a second slower this time around here in 2025, but still enough to win a gold medal in style. But yeah, what a brilliant race to finish off this first weekend of the championships.
No need for these athletes who were on the bubble, either on the podium or maybe even getting it to the final. What are some recommendations for kind of improving their performance? Like, what should they focus on training wise to maybe get that second they need to go from semi into the final, or maybe get themselves onto the podium?
Yeah, so obviously a lot of time has to be spent, doing kind of the endurance style racing that has to come into play just to get that aerobic fitness. And then it's about transitioning into that power, that speed, that strength. So a lot of them will be focusing on strength work in the gym, trying to lift heavy, and then it will transition again to that fast speed work, that powerful plyometric style training to get the power in the legs. Because as we saw there, it's not those long strokes that we're going to see next weekend in the 2,000-meter races. A lot of these rowers are rowing, half or three-quarter strokes because it's pure power coming out of their legs and their glutes. So it's about developing that. So strength work, gym work, resistance training is a huge part of these 500-meter races.
Camilla, you mentioned technique, and everyone has different technique in when you're going this fast in these 500-meter races. Did anything stand out from you from that race that really, that really looked good, that really looked clean? That's probably what led that athlete to have the result they did.
Yeah, look, I think that we saw the shots of Kuvalainen and just that little bit longer than some of the athletes that maybe perhaps expended a little bit too much energy in the first half of the 500 meters. Again, we talk about this being a sprint, but there is still elements of ensuring that you create efficiencies, and actually that having that bit of a longer stroke rate does sometimes allow you to use the whole extent of your leg drive to be able to put power down. That was something that, Neve called out, certainly perhaps hindered some of our players that performed really well, like Lee Davis through the semi-finals. Just unlocking those extra couple of seconds for the top few, I think, came with that little bit more length, that little bit more time. I know that they're flying up and down the slide of the ergometer still in the sort of high 40s and 50s, but even just, giving yourself that little bit more space to be able to take a full length stroke makes all the difference when it comes up to those points of a second at the top of the leaderboard.
Well, we had 7 finals today, and we actually had the opportunity to talk to a few of our winners from some of the earlier races from earlier in the competition. So let's take a look.
Very, very, very happy, and possibly a little bit faster than I meant to go, but got all excited. I've got some friends and family here cheering me on, so I just thought, go for it.
It was a good opportunity to compete alongside all athletes from all over the world. Such a nice experience to compete and to represent the country, It's an honor to represent the country at the highest level.
So Camilla, we talked about the that need for this support system in kind of creating that competition environment, because of course competing virtually is different than competing in person. And Rachel mentioned that it was kind of having the people around her that enabled her to go faster than she originally thought. So it's not just the racing, it's all the ancillary stuff that is the difference between perhaps winning a gold medal or not even making it to the final.
Yeah, and we'll have a lot of athletes that are racing this weekend and also racing next weekend. So they've got a week now to analyze perhaps where they could make some changes, and whether that is, messaging their friends, messaging anyone that might be able to come down to the club to support them, to come over to their house and cheer them on. They've got that week to be able to make those changes before next weekend's 2,000-meter races. And of course, there's some people that aren't sprinters that won't have entered the 500-meter race that next weekend will be their first opportunity to shine here on the international stage. And again, they'll have looked at how people might have raced this weekend and today, and they might be sort of pre-planning, ordering the disco lights on Amazon. I think I would be doing if I were them, ready for their performances next weekend.
Hopefully there's no shipping issues for those disco lights. And Neve, do you expect that we'll see some competitors doubling up, being on the podium this weekend and next weekend, or do you think that skill set is just too different?
No, I think we will see some sort of doubling up, maybe not exact podium positions, but definitely make it from the continental knockouts, which will happen on Saturday again, into the semi-finals. I definitely do think we will see some repeat names. It's proven time and time again, the likes of Joel Karinen of Finland, Ali Hassan, who we saw earlier on from Egypt. They transition from the different types of rowing, and you can get good at all of them. And Joel Karinen has proven that. Flat water, beach sprints, coastals, indoor rowing, and the Versa Challenge has been a really good eye opener for people that you can be good at all the different types. There was long distance, short distance, lots of different types that we've seen over the last couple of years at the World Rowing Indoor Championships. And it just proves that you can kind of do it all if you want.
You can, and we mentioned the global feel for this event. Let's take a look at where all of the competitors who competed this weekend were from, and it really does span the globe. Clustered, of course, in Europe, but still all across the globe, 5 continents represented, and it really just shows, Camilla, that global reach of rowing.
Yeah, I think really there's not too many places not represented here on this map, and great to see competitors from, like you say, South America, from Africa, from Australasia, from sort of Australasia, from Asia, from North America, and of course, like you say, there's always a big population in Europe. I think given the championships have been held in person in Europe for the last few years, it's become a big movement here, and fitness racing as well, much like North America. But again, over the course of these couple of weekends, 74 nations entered overall into the open heats. So absolutely brilliant to see so many represented here today. I think you said 45 at the open of the show, Mike. Great to see that many progressing through.
Well, it was a blast. Great first weekend of competition. Thank you, Camilla. Thank you, Niamh. We'll do it all again next weekend for much longer races as well. It is the 2,000-meter showdown next Sunday, so we'll be there for that coverage. But for our on-camera commentary team, everyone behind the scenes, thank you very much for joining us at this presentation of the 2025 World Rowing Indoor Championships presented by Concept2. We'll see you next Sunday.